that this is an insider stitcher designed so that the ANC can revive its electoral fortunes rather than a genuine discussion and action plan about the way forward.
Operation Tutula members have stormed the Lilian Ngoyi clinic in Diepkloof, Soweto, demanding urgent engagement with the authorities. This follows last week's arrest of 3 women who allegedly entered a medical facility and demanded identity documents from patients. The trio appeared in the Orlando Magistrates Court today, and the case was postponed to October the 10th. Operation Tutula organizer Tami Madobe is leading the protest.
We are inside the clinic with the view that we came here to engage with the facility management to take these discussions further and try and establish the facts as to how it came about for our members to be arrested and find an amicable solution. However, the bottom line is that we're still standing firm and saying illegal foreigners would not be allowed into our general public hospital. That space is reserved for South Africans and South Africans only.
Operation Tutula says it's taking its concerns straight to the top. Movement spokesperson Mazobe confirms they'll be meeting with Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi this afternoon to raise urgent issues around undocumented foreigners in public health facilities.
There is a meeting with the Minister of Health. Subsequently, after all of these engagement, we've been requested to meet the Minister of Health this afternoon. I think the meeting is about 4 o'clock. So we are taking all of these grievances and putting them in front of him and try to reason and understand his reasoning and his department to assist us.
Police are appealing to the public with information on the suspects of the kidnapping of a 73-year-old woman from the Furbridge Heights in Kariega in the Eastern Cape to come forward. Police spokesperson Andre Bierge says the incident was reported earlier today. Bierge says there's no ransom demand at this stage. Al Jazeera has condemned Israel for what it called the targeted assassination of its journalist in Gaza, calling it a desperate attempt to silence the voices exposing the impending occupation of the territory. Israeli officials claim the network's Pulitzer Prize-winning correspondent Anas al-Sharif was a Hamas operative, an allegation strongly denied by Al Jazeera. The BBC's Yolande Nell has the details.
We haven't really had any explanation for killing the other journalists with Anas al-Sharif, because there were 6 people killed altogether, 5 of them from Al Jazeera. So an entire Al Jazeera news crew basically have been eliminated, and local journalists have told us they were not often all together, but that this Israeli drone strike took place just after they'd all gathered together in the tent.
Recapping the top story, there will be a thorough accounting of monies spent in hosting the National Convention in Pretoria this weekend. This is the assurance given by Director at NEDLEG, Makuko Mampuru. I am on Dilambana for SFM News Headlines at 3:30.
This hour, Sundowns Pirates MTN 8 semi-final first leg sold out. In your headlines this hour, when it comes to sports, Sundowns Pirates MTN 8 semi-final first leg sold out. Rickleton hails Mapaga after opening T20 loss.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. SAFM celebrates its 89th birthday this month by giving listeners an exclusive opportunity to attend the prestigious Joy of Jazz taking place at the Sandton Convention Centre from the 26th to the 28th of September 2025. To stand a chance to win these sought-after tickets, simply SMS SAFM 89 followed by your name to 41391 and stay tuned to SAFM as we could be calling you. SAFM is the official media partner for the Dipala stage at the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz. Entries open from the 7th of August and close on the 31st of August 2025. Winners will be randomly selected and called from the 1st of September 2025. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. T's and C's apply. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So, how was your weekend? Seriously, how was your weekend? And there were big issues of leisure around the weekend. Naturally so, lots of people watching sport and other forms of recreation. And understandably, there's always the big news stories that dominate the headlines over the weekend that sets the agenda for the week. And I think two things particularly come to mind. One is the issue of the allegations of racism based upon the tweets of Gayton McKenzie, the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, and of course the head of his own political party. And the other is the killings of 6 journalists in Gaza, in Palestine, outside the Al-Shifa hospital. One of them, 5 of them, in fact, part of the Al Jazeera network. One of them is Anas al-Sharif, very, very well known and very respected in that field. And there's a big debate once again about how journalists are not protected and targeted in terms of when they're covering that story. Hopefully we'll get your thoughts on that as well. Well, my name's Ashraf Garda. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse. So you tell me, what moves the National Pulse today? 086 000 2032. Then that's the call in live. WhatsApp 0614 104 107. And if you are tweeting, use that hashtag the National Pulse. So here's one of them. Earlier today, members of Operation Dudula staged a protest outside the Orlando Magistrates Court. So why did they do so? 3 of the group's members appeared in court after allegedly storming a Soweto clinic last week. And in doing so, they demanded that patients produce their ID documents to prove their nationality. Do you want to call that a witch hunt, maybe? But it didn't just end there. Some of their members did it again this morning. So we now understand that the Minister of Health, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, will be meeting with the group's leadership sometime this afternoon to resolve this issue of treatment, really, from healthcare authorities to people who are in the country, local or foreign nationals, and organizations like Operation Dudula, who effectively are suggesting that foreign nationals must not be treated, or something along that line. Well, did the meeting take place? When is it happening? What is the position of the Department of Health? Let's get the thoughts of Foster Mohale, the spokesperson for the Department of Health. Foster, as always, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to you, good afternoon to your listeners, and thanks for this opportunity once more.
Thank you. So first things first, has the meeting with Operation Dudula's leadership taken place?
Look, not yet. I can confirm that as the department, we've reached out to the leadership of Operation Dudula in order to sit down and understand their concerns and work on the way forward in terms of finding a long-term solution on this issue instead of dealing with this issue in a piecemeal. So that we believe that through a sit-down meeting, we'll be able to find each other and also to show each other how this issue can be handled with sober minds to avoid creating pandemonium.
So let me understand this. Operation Dudula, not just today, but for a while, have been making the point that foreign nationals must not be given healthcare services in public healthcare at the expense of South Africans, keeping in mind that we are already overloaded, and you would know that more than anybody else. And on that basis, they must not be treated. Now, so what do you or the health department not understand about that position? Because that's been their consistent line, and all their protests and actions reflects that line.
No, their concerns are genuine. No, there's no dispute about that. But also, there's a law in the country that we need to respect, all of us, regardless of our views and positions on certain issues. Hence, we call upon anyone, not only members of Operation Dudula, anyone in the country, individuals and organizations with concerns about access to health by undocumented migrants to say, please raise your concerns within the confines of the law without causing any disruptions, because at the end of the day, South Africa is a constitutional state with look, we've got a constitution that we need to respect at the end of the day. But also, we need also to emphasize that when the constitution of the country was passed many years ago, they did not foresee a challenge of undocumented migrants flocking into the country. Hence, the constitution says anyone who happened to be in the country has got an access to health care. But we still want to encourage anyone with concerns to say, please, let's try to propose any solutions, long-term solutions, because the issue of undocumented nationals is not only about health, but it's a societal issue. Think about the issue of security. If they happen to commit crime, how will the police trace them? So hence we say we need all hands on deck to find solution to this issue of undocumented nationals in the country.
So help us understand this from your side. What is the position regarding healthcare insofar as it has to be consistent with the Constitution? Meaning, what can the various hospitals and clinics do and cannot do with foreign nationals as per the Constitution?
Look, the healthcare workers have to uphold the Constitution of the country. There's no one who must act against the Constitution of the country. That will be a lawless, and we are not a lawless country. But we understand that the current laws, they are not addressing the current concerns. Hence, I indicated earlier on, say, when the Constitution was drafted and passed many years ago, there are certain issues that were not foresawn. So, hence, we say for now that they are raising issues that are not sufficiently covered by the Constitution. Say the best way is to sit down with government, but propose measures if it means the Section 27 of the Constitution must be amended. Let, especially the parliamentarians, they've got the right to propose the bills that will lead to amendment of the Constitution, especially Section 27, which will automatically nullify other pieces of legislation like the National Health Act. But for now, we say let's uphold the Constitution, let's respect the laws of the country, but raise our issues within the confines of the law, propose long-term solutions to the current challenges that we're experiencing.
So at this point in time, if a person is a foreign national who's documented, you're obliged to provide healthcare service if they arrive at a hospital. If the same person is a foreign national who's undocumented, do I take it you are also obliged to do the same thing? Yeah?
For two reasons. Yes, because of the Constitution, we cannot discriminate against anybody based on the immigration status. That's number one. Number two, our healthcare workers have signed an oath when they graduate, Hippocratic oath, which says they will never discriminate against any healthcare user based on whatever reason. So apart from the Constitution, our healthcare workers, if they deny anyone access to healthcare, they will be violating that oath. But we say, look, let's assist each other to find solution to the problems confronting our beautiful country.
All right. So what then do you think would be the solution? Because you've got Operation Tudula, but they're not the only ones. There are many people who are part of no operations who will call into the show and WhatsApp groups, and they all see a decline in healthcare services, in public healthcare. They know it's overloaded, and they see foreign nationals undocumented, so effectively in the country illegally, being given the same service as them. And they're like, how can we ever accept that? So without suggesting Operation Tudula are right or wrong, the question is then, there's a problem. How then, from a Department of Health position, besides constitutional changes down the line, what would you suggest would be the solution right now?
Yeah, hence I said this is not about the Department of Health. You never know. One day this can spread to the Department of Education. One day this can spread to the Department of Transport, where people, they demand the driver's licenses and the ID numbers, ID copies of those who are driving the cars. Imagine if the same protest, now they go to the transport sector where they conduct the roadblocks demanding to see the permits, the driver's permits, the IDs of all the drivers.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I get
yes,
that.
But hence I want to say, please, this is a societal issue. In the next, I think this week, remember, the president did announce that we are going to have a national dialogue. That is another platform that people can use to raise some of the issues confronting the country.
So in the meantime, in terms of this meet-up, you're saying the department actually reached out to Operation Tudula, right? So is the meeting happening today or not?
The meeting is confirmed to take place during the course of the week. We'll make an announcement as soon as everything has been finalized.
So not today, as has been reported in some sources, yeah?
Yeah, no, during the course of the let me say, to be on a safer side, because now, as where I'm sitting now, I don't have the final details, but all I can confirm that is scheduled to take place during the course of the week.
Okay, I hear that. What then about the Zandile Dubula was quoted earlier today, right, as saying that the police are working against us. That's one. But this is the other part. I'm not inciting violence. But if we have to fight, if that means making the country ungovernable, then so be it. So when you say have a meeting, that's what you're up against. An organization, a movement that says we have a strong position on this, and if that means pushing our line, if that makes the country ungovernable, well, so be it. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, remember, all we say, anyone who wants to disregard the laws of the country, obviously now that becomes a security issue. It's not about health. If someone says, I'm not going to respect the laws of the country, it is not, now it becomes the role of the law enforcers to enforce the law. So that one we can't comment on those kinds of threats if indeed the leader of Operation Tudula said they are going to disregard the laws of the country. So then it means now the law enforcers now will have to do their work.
Okay. I certainly want to get a sense from you about the general state of healthcare in our country with regard to whether there's like an overloading of patients and inability, therefore, to deliver service to them, which we'll do that right after this.
Wayne, for you, what is the real deal?
For me, it's really customer service. It's getting my money's worth. So if I phone OUTsurance and I've got a problem, they're always there.
So it's not just, we've got your money, now off you go.
No, money is not the biggest deal for me. It's service. Just phone OUTsurance, get a quote and see what they can offer you. If you don't save that $321 like I did, you might get a $500 or $1,000 back. Service and savings, you'll always get something out.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands.
What does you always get something out mean to you,
OUTsurance made it possible for us to live our dream to travel more with the money in our pocket that we save.
Let me know, what is it?
$725. It was unbelievable. My husband, he sits there on the chair and he's just nodding his head and saying, yes. This is really not just an advertisement. This is really real.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
September 5 is Casual Day. Time to get your Casual Day sticker and gear in support of persons with disabilities. Looking beyond the label, your contribution makes a tangible impact. Visit www.ncpd.org.za. Many thanks from the National Council of and for Persons with Disabilities.
This is an SABC-supported initiative. Mr. Govender, congrats on the retirement. You just sold your car to We Buy Cars. Tell us about it.
Yes, it just gathered dust in the garage, so I exchanged it for cold hard cash. Now my wife and I can enjoy a stress-free retirement.
Retiring the car as you retire. Nice. So why We Buy Cars?
It was so quick. They came over to our house to do the evaluation, and we sold it the same day. Tops, man.
Okay, so now you got even more time on your hands, eh?
Exactly.
We Buy Cars. Geared for your next chapter. Geared for you.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, let's conclude the conversation with Foster Mohale, the spokesperson for the Department of Health. This in the context of Operation Darula, as they have been doing quite often, protesting and then having some of their people arrested because they've actually literally gone to hospitals and health clinics and asking people to identify themselves in terms of whether they are foreign nationals or South Africans as well, and suggesting they may make the country ungovernable if that's what it will take to get their way. Foster, just let's get a sense from your side. What about the healthcare workers, who are working in these clinics and hospitals? I would think this must cause them tremendous stress. These constant positions from Operation Darula and talk shows like this, people calling in to say, why are they dealing with foreign nationals? So we know what the law says, but this must impact on them.
No, definitely, absolutely correct. You can imagine if you are now in the studio, but there are protesters around your studio who are saying, no, you are not supposed to interview Foster because he's an illegal immigrant. Definitely that is causing really anxiety among our healthcare workers. But we continuously encourage them to focus on doing their job without paying attention to the protests around the facilities. Of course, it is said that in some facilities, we were informed that the protests moved from outside into the facilities. Also, that is very disruptive in nature, and also they feel unsafe in the place where they are supposed to they execute their mandate, perform their functions without any fear of becoming the victims one day.
Okay, give us a sense. Let's take a typical metropolitan hospital, Joburg, Cape Town, Durban, those metros. What percentage of the patients there are undocumented foreign nationals versus the rest?
Yeah, no. This differs from one facility to another for a number of reasons. Also, the location where the facility is located. If the facility is located near the areas, squatter camps, where there are a lot of foreign nationals, obviously there will be a high rate of healthcare users who are undocumented. That's number two. Number two is also the issue of the borders. The clinics which are located around the border lines between South Africa and other countries. Take example of Musina. Obviously, the facilities there, they will see a high number of undocumented nationals from Zimbabwe, Komati Port from Mozambique, around the Free State from Lesotho, around some parts of KZN, where we are bordering with Mozambique, and so forth. So there's no dispute about that in some areas there's a high rate in terms of the clients or the healthcare users who are undocumented, precisely because of the proximity between South Africa and the neighboring countries.
I understand. Okay, let's leave it at that. We will chat to a representative from Operation Darula coming up after 5 o'clock. So listen out for that. Foster Mohale, appreciate you connecting with us on the National Pulse. It means time now for us to get your calls, because you, wherever you may be around the country, local, foreign national, documented, undocumented, whoever you may be, we need to hear you because you're on the Pulse.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's get to calls first. We go to Bloemfontein. Bramoro, you first up. Go for it. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Ashraf. How are you?
I'll leave the Mr. just Ashraf, but go for it anyway.
All right, thank you. Firstly, as your your speaker earlier indicated, it's against the Constitution to deny anyone, regardless of their legal status in the country, the right for health care. But the problem is, even if foreigners, including myself, we all decide to depart from the country, there is no way we are going to see massive development at the health sector. This is undisputed fact. Because one, doctor ratio to patient is a major crisis. We already have graduate doctors who are still sitting home. Up to now, they have not been posted to the various health centers. Secondly, Mr. Ashraf, this is where you can get this scenario from. You can check all the Department of Home Affairs centers across the country. We see frequent long queues, people queuing for ID, birth certificate, etc. These queues, there is no single foreigner in it, because foreigners are only going to either Marabasta Refugee Center or VFS to apply for our various visas or extend it. So this tells us that if all foreigners migrate from the country, the crisis and the queues at the clinics and hospitals are still going to be there. What rather we can recommend for the state to do is, if you have a look at a country called Ghana, they have National Health Insurance Scheme in which every person, regardless of your nationality, you pay a certain premium to the state. Mm-hmm. Then the state issue you an ID card. Whenever you are sick, you use the ID card to access government health without paying any extra, regardless of the condition of health care that you need. And kids under 18 years are exempted from paying that money or from even getting the card. They register under the parents. So if maybe South Africa can tap into that, perhaps it will be a solution to the current crisis that we are all fighting against.
All right, Bramoro, noted. Let's see if somebody picks up on that solution. I think we're all battling with solutions, and I think you're right that even if you remove the foreign nationals, undocumented ones that is, from healthcare, does that suggest that somehow the healthcare situation will improve in the country? Thomas in Newcastle, you live, go for it. What's your point?
No, Ashraf, I think Bramoro is coming with a good solution, except for the fact that we are not talking about foreign nationals per se. We're talking about undocumented. So, which will mean this: the foreign nationals are not an issue because they are part of the society, because they are known, they pay some whatever. I mean, foreign national things must be paid in terms of your insurances and whatever the case may be. And to me, the fact that the leader of Tudula says we will render the country ungovernable, it is unfortunate because the government is not doing their job. The gentleman you had there, Ashraf, who says it might tomorrow be on transport or whatever else, which is the social rendering service to the country. It's because our government is not doing their job. If the government was doing their job, because we've got laws against these things. For instance, the hospital, if you don't have a status that is acceptable, they should be holding you, call the authority. The authority should take you, but you're not doing that.
Okay.
Possibly, the hospital has gotten fed up or discouraged for doing one and the same thing without results. Ultimately, politicians are doing us in.
Okay, got that. Well, you know what? Many say something similar to what you're saying, Thomas, but I welcome different opinions on dealing with the issue of undocumented foreign nationals in clinics in particular. Here's another.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Ntobeko in Umthwaluma. On the issue of clinics and Operation Tudula and the foreigners, I'm thinking, is it not possible that we open a different set of clinics, hospitals, where only the foreigners will be attended? And then obviously those clinics and hospitals would be funded by their countries. So the money is to fund these clinics and hospitals will come from their countries. Maybe that can be a solution. They must have their own within the country. Thank you.
I mean, wouldn't that be seen as like apartheid? Just think about it. But on the one hand, on the other hand, can you really see a person who leaves another country to come to this country and getting that country, their home country, to actually pay for their healthcare? It's like, I don't know, South Africans going to the USA as refugees, as we know, that conversation, and getting us to fund their healthcare. Seriously, that's just never going to happen. 3:30, here's the news headlines with Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, the National Convention Preparatory Task Team says the withdrawal of some foundations has not affected its work. Their leader, Johnston Hazen, has rejected the suggestion that more parties be added into the GNU, stating that would only further complicate things within the coalition. And U.S. President Donald Trump has announced that he will hold a press conference later today to address ending crime, murder and death in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound slow moving towards Crown Interchange, and the N3 northbound in Germiston is where track fire incidents reported at Geldenhuys Interchange. In KZN, the N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle reported before Mgeni Road and truck congestion reported in the Bayhead Rosberg area, so expect delays. In Cape Town, the R300 northbound has ramp closure reported, no access to the N2 outbound due to flooding, and the M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, listen, this is my own prediction. If you told me Orlando Pirates will lose their opening game, Sundowns will draw, and of the big three, the team that will win is Kaizer Chiefs, I would have said, welcome to the new season.
I wouldn't have thought that. But anyway, we'll talk about predictions later on. For now, though, let's focus on Bafana Bafana. Very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, progression in the group is the main point for Bafana Bafana heading into their second game in Group C in the African Nations Championship tournament against Guinea this afternoon at the Nelson Mandela National Stadium. Kickoff at 4 p.m. after earning a point in a hard-fought 1-1 draw against group favourites Algeria on Friday. Bafana come to today's encounter with a lot of hope, and head coach Molefi Ntseki says that it's very important that they start to make their mark in this 5-team group. Meanwhile, tickets for Saturday's MTN8 semi-final first leg between Mamelodi Sundowns and Orlando Pirates are officially sold out. The Buccaneers, who are the defending champions, will be at home at Orlando Stadium in that first leg, and kickoff is set for 3 p.m. Then Siwelele FC coach Lhlonolo Siema says that they've gone past their first big hurdle after opening with a 3-1 win over Golden Arrows at a packed Dr. Mulimela Stadium. And following the club's takeover of Supersport United, all eyes were on Siema to see how he would manage the transition with a blend of youth and experience. Well, the coach says that they are still searching for their identity.
I wasn't being trying to be funny. Really, you can see some of the things here, some of the passes, some of the movement. We are still trying to find each other. They're still trying to understand what I want. Definitely, we have won. I'm happy, but there's still a lot of things that did not go right. We can keep the ball better. We can make better decisions. I think the goal that we scored is a very soft goal. We need to defend better, and we need to make sure that the opponent doesn't sniff. Even we gave them it was an easy goal because I think Gos maybe make one save first half, the straight shot that came to him. Other than that, except that those dead balls. So we don't know ourselves. We're still trying to find ourselves. The Siwelele still is a new baby. It just needs support, and it's a process, and the players, they understand that.
Elsewhere, Eddie Howe has admitted the restrictions of the Premier League's profit and sustainability regulations are controlling Newcastle's ability to compete in the transfer market. Newcastle have endured a hugely frustrating summer, missing out on a host of transfer targets while having to cope without Alexandra Isak. The striker is training away from the first team and will miss next weekend's Premier League opener at Aston Villa after telling the club that he wants to explore his options elsewhere. In cricket, Proteas batter Ryan Rickleton has hailed Gwena Mapaga. This is after taking 4 wickets, including that of David, as South Africa lost by 17 runs to Australia in the first of the 3 T20 internationals. And Rickleton says that he's quite excited to see what the 19-year-old still has to offer.
Yeah, he's quite a fiery character. He's very relaxed, very quiet in the change room, but you can see he had a bit of a go at Tim there, but he's very competitive. He backs his ability, which is great. It's cool to see a young guy stand up to Australia in their backyard. It's very promising for South African cricket. And yeah, like I say, he's quite a relaxed guy in the change room, but when he crosses that line, he's got a bit of white line fever, which is again quite exciting for us.
In rugby, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has shed light on his decision to field captain Siya Kolisi at number 8 instead of his usual number 7 position for the Rugby Championship opener against Australia. The Boks will host the Wallabies in back-to-back tests at Ellis Park on Saturday before hosting them in Cape Town a week later, with the 23-man squad having been named earlier today. One of the few surprises will see Kolisi in an unfamiliar 8th-man role, while Kwaga, a traditional number 8, occupies a spot among 5 forwards and 3 backs on the bench, but Erasmus says that he has an ace up his sleeve. In tennis, Australian Adam Walton provided one of the shock results so far at the Cincinnati Masters, beating 12th seed Daniil Medvedev 6-7, 6-4 and 6-1. Walton, currently enjoying a career high ranking of 84, reached the 4th round of the Miami Masters earlier this season. Then finally in golf, South Africa's Dean Burmester says that he drew inspiration from his wife to claim an emotional second career Live Golf title in Chicago. His wife completed an ultra marathon just hours before he teed off in Chicago. The 36-year-old fought back from a shaky start to force a 3-way playoff with defending champion Jon Rahm and Spain's Gisele Ballester, and Burmester made a birdie to win his second playoff. I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, and it's interesting, just in one day, there's a banter in the local PSL, and there's a banter ahead of the English season that starts this weekend.
This weekend, yeah.
And it's fun. Besides now the Springboks playing, there's just a different sense of excitement and anticipation. And the good thing about a new season is every team believes they can win the league.
Absolutely. And the nice thing about it is the fact that it's unpredictable, as you saw this past week in terms of the Betway Premiership.
Yeah. All right, great. More sport in an hour.
It is time to experience spectacular football talent from 19 African nations. East Africa is on full vibration. From Tanzania, Kenya to Uganda, the pitch personnel are hungry for continental glory. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Witness Jan 2024 on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 from 2 to 30 August 2025. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
When you're uploading massive files, does it really matter what your internet's download speed is? With business class internet, you get a connection that's as fast going up as it is down. Your company deserves business class internet, because just reboot the router isn't a business strategy. Find reliability at vodacombusiness.co.za. Together, let's build the extraordinary. Further together. Vodacom Business.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So yes, I mean, if I ask you that question, what for you moves the National Pulse? I mean, just think about it. The killing of the Al Jazeera journalists in Gaza, in Palestine, one of them, Gaten McKenzie's, racism row, the issue of Operation Dula's vowing to make South Africa ungovernable, the DA responding to ANC's GNU expansion plan, and the status of what's coming up, the national dialogue at the weekend or the Friday, without the other big hitters as part of that conversation. So what do you think, right? Well, let's talk about one of them. So 6 journalists in total, 5 of them from one media house, Al Jazeera, have been killed in an Israeli strike in Gaza City. According to the BBC News, the Israeli military confirmed it was targeted, right? 28-year-old correspondent Anas al-Sharif, alleging that he had served as the head of a terrorist cell in Hamas. But Al Jazeera called it a targeted assassination and yet another blatant and premeditated attack on press freedom. So the BBC then chatted the BBC chatted to their correspondent who is based in Jerusalem. That's Yolanda Nell. Just listen to this conversation.
Let's get more on our top story and events in the Middle East. And a prominent Al Jazeera journalist, Anas al-Sharif, has been killed in an Israeli strike in Gaza, along with colleagues. Let's get the latest from Yolande Nell, our Middle East correspondent in Jerusalem. Yolande, the Israeli military has said it targeted Anas al-Sharif, accusing him of being a terrorist. It's produced some evidence, it says, of this. How does that stand up? Is it possible to verify it?
I mean, it's not something that we can independently verify. There are these shots of spreadsheets that have Anas al-Sharif's name on, and the suggestion that's coming from the Israeli military is basically that he was on the Hamas payroll, at least at some point. They're accusing the 28-year-old of having posed as a journalist, having fired rockets at Israelis in the past, and having led what they call a terrorist cell. Al Jazeera says that these were fabricated documents, and the Israeli military is not offering any explanation for the killing of the other members of the Al Jazeera team. 5 killed altogether and 6 people killed in this strike, apparently from a missile fired by a drone. And they were just outside Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. Al Jazeera is accusing Israel of wanting to silence somebody with an important voice and silence coverage that is coming out of Gaza at this extremely important time. Of course, this is happening just as Israel is threatening to start its new military offensive in Gaza City and threatening to force 1 million people who are currently living there to make their way southwards, they say, so that they can go and take over the entirety of the city and make sure that it is free of Hamas.
And just on how Al Jazeera operates, because the BBC and other journalist organisations are not able to get into Gaza, how is Al Jazeera able to operate there?
I mean, Al Jazeera is using locally recruited journalists who are acting as, correspondents, cameramen, producers. They have teams throughout the Gaza Strip, and through the Arab world, their coverage has been extremely prominent during this war. They have managed to keep covering certain parts of the Gaza Strip when other journalists have not been able to reach there. And we've seen, just in the case of Anas al-Sharif, he covered extensively what's been going on in Gaza City, the starvation situation there in recent weeks. There are other points I remember earlier on. He came from Jabalia in the north of the Strip, and there were some periods where the only footage I really remember seeing was from him, from Jabalia, when there was a very controversial Israeli military operation there as well.
Just briefly, Yolande, just tell us more about the latest lines coming from the UN Security Council as Israel faces ongoing criticism for widening the operation.
I mean, what I think will be key for Israel is the fact that, it still had the closest ally, the US, backing it at this Security Council meeting. It was an emergency meeting actually called by the UK, and a rare one to have at the weekend, and it was in response to Israel widening its military offensive in Gaza, the announcements that we've seen. The US, of course, wields veto power at the Security Council, so it can act as a powerful defender of Israel there. Afterwards, we're told that the Israeli Prime Minister called President Trump and thanked him for what he said this was the US's steadfast support.
Yolande Nell in Jerusalem, many thanks.
So there we are. Let's get your thoughts on that. So interestingly enough, what we know, what are the facts? What we know is that 6 people have died, 5 from Al Jazeera. All 6 are journalists in the media space. Some of them are reporters, others are cameramen, right? So 5 with Al Jazeera. One of them in particular, the most well-known, Anas al-Sharif, who the Israelis say was targeted specifically because of his connection to Hamas. As you've heard the correspondent saying, there's no proof of that. Certainly Al Jazeera has denied that. But also, let's say that may or may not be true, 5 others have died as a result of that. It's that sort of level of, assassination, really, that's been causing a huge uproar, certainly from media houses, besides, the Palestinians, but media houses around the world, to say what protection for journalists, to say if it's okay just to kill them off, right? Right, let's get your thoughts on some of the issues we're talking about. And as always, you can WhatsApp us and you can call in live as well. Lots of conversation about illegal migrants. We go to Kimberley first up with Vulu Mazulu. Let's get your thoughts. You want to talk about Mozambique?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm a first-time caller.
Welcome to the show.
On your show.
Welcome.
But an avid listener.
I'm delighted. Thank you.
3
Go
p.m.
for it.
presentation.
Thank you.
Ashraf, I'm a bit troubled by the silence in the killings of Christians in Mozambique, the beheading of Christians' families in Congo, the killing of Christians in Nigeria. What troubles me is these incidents are so close to us. Our government is completely silent in terms of speaking up against these killings, because these are also human beings. The Security Council, the African Union is silent, major news are silent. I think, Ashraf, we need to condemn all killings. Killing is killing.
Well, we absolutely need to. So what do you expect South Africa to do? I mean, I don't know the facts of the story and you raising it. What do you expect South Africa to do?
I expect South Africa to raise her voice as a fighter for peace and be non-aligned, Ashraf. Because really, Mozambique is just so close to us. The killing of Christians, yet our government is silent.
All right, let's find out more about it when we know. We'll certainly see if we can follow that story up. Vula Mazulu, thank you for time. And thanks for listening in and for calling in as well on the first time. Elvis in Midrand, go for it. What's your point?
Afternoon, Ashraf. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
My view is that, you see, when it comes to illegal foreigners, government assistance was to maybe have center, at the borders where they process them to come in, because some of them, their challenges is that in their countries of origin, where they come from, the documentation is so expensive that they cannot even afford. So to say, because they are here and these are our brothers. However, government has no capacity to deal with these illegals. That's the reason why you see Operation Dudula take advantage of this. And even if we were to blame them, Operation Dudula, it's not about blaming each other. Who's doing what and what is to say. Government has to say, how do we partner with maybe Operation Dudula, but not to stop people from hospitals, but to process illegals when they come from foreign countries like Zimbabwe. My brother, Zimbabwe is in ICU. A lot of things are not functioning. A human being cannot exist properly in that country. I visited a place called...
Right, very quickly, I need to move on to others as well. If you can just push it very quickly, yeah?
Yes, I'm just saying, the process center to assist our foreign nationals, so that they can at least, we know they are documented. When they commit crime, they do arrive in our country, we know.
Okay.
There's a recent guy from Zimbabwe killed 2 of our police officials. And mark my word, chances are 100%, 95% is not documented.
Okay, I got it. I need to move on. I really do. That's just the only reason why I have to say goodbye to you. Thank you for that. And again, you've raised that on the agenda too. Right, there's more to come, including now we'll chat about the DA's reaction to any plans to expand the GNU with Ibrahim Fakir right after this.
Chipolopolo of Zambia is chasing victory. However, the Portuguese-speaking team Angola have a serious mandate to secure 3 points. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Experience Zambia versus Angola the Sunday 10 August at 5 p.m. Live everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Fly Safe's Business Booster is back to help elevate and celebrate small local businesses. Enter now at flysafe.co.za. Tell us about your business, and you could be one of 6 standout enterprises to win 10 return business class flights plus brand exposure across Fly Safe's various platforms. Whether you're making, creating, or innovating, we're here to help your business not just take off but skyrocket. Fly Safe, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
This Women's Month, SAFM stands with the women shaping South Africa's future under the theme, Building Resilient Economies for All. We honor the pioneers, the problem solvers, and the everyday heroes driving change. Stay tuned as SAFM brings you powerful stories and meaningful conversations that move us. SAFM, celebrating women, celebrating progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's move on to another big issue. The Democratic Alliance, they've been busy. They've been pronouncing on a whole range of things, including BE and other thoughts, and we'll pick up on that conversation just after the news. But let's pick up on one particular aspect of the position of the Democratic Alliance, right? We do know that the ANC a few days ago, they were talking about the idea of expanding the GNU. This in the context of so many people knocking the GNU down about whether it's working or not. But anyway, they're talking about expanding it, right? So will that work or not? We can have that debate. But the party, that's the DA, they've reiterated that a statement of intent makes it abundantly clear that if new parties are to be added to the GNU, this has to be done in consultation with the other parties, right? That's one. On the other hand, they believe the move will not strengthen the current political arrangement, but will only complicate things. Of course, it would, isn't it? Ibrahim Fakir is with me. He's a political analyst. Ibrahim, appreciate you connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf. Nice to chat to you.
Good indeed, right. So let's start with that. It's a move that will only complicate things, says the DA. You agree?
Oh, absolutely. But you got to first go back to a few foundational issues. Let's just be clear that this government of national unity is actually simply a coalition. It's a coalition of multiple parties, and that's what it is. You can call it GNU if you like, but essentially it is merely a coalition. Now, why am I saying that this is just a coalition rather than a GNU? I'm saying so because a coalition is parties who voluntarily agree to come together to work through cabinet in the executive and perhaps distribute a few portfolio committee chairs amongst themselves at parliament, right? A GNU would actually establish a set of criteria for why parties would be included or not. For one, they would say, do we want to have a threshold which parties must have achieved in an election to test a minimum amount of political support that they enjoy across society that includes them in processes of executing government policy, influencing budgets, and getting a certain set of legitimate authority to exercise because you've tested a certain amount of support in society. We have no such criteria. There are actually no criteria. And what that absence of criteria does is that it allows the largest party, in this case, the ANC, to use the space that exists as arbitrage. And what do I mean by that? I mean they can continue playing parties against each other to their own benefit, number one. Number two, they use the opportunity by including a greater number of parties to dispense largesse and patronage to bolster their own political support in that cabinet. And so what you have going on now is using the institutions and processes of government and the levers and instruments of government to achieve party political ends. Now, of course, no one is blind to the fact that government processes are not political. They're fundamentally political. They are. That's what they are. But you do not use government processes to achieve party political ends by keeping out other parties. Once you have established a government and you've got a government agenda, a policy agenda, then that's what you follow. Which brings me to to the final point I just want to make quickly. Remember, this GNU or coalition is founded on nothing other than a flimsy, what they call statement of intent. The statement of intent is not a recipe or a document by which, or a set of policy prescripts by which you can go ahead and govern. They have no agreements around what they would do, what they want to achieve, what minimum targets they want to achieve in which portfolio areas, which budgeted amounts they can agree on that should be spent on certain priorities. Hell, they haven't even achieved any kind of consensus on what the priorities should be and ought to be. Now, what kind of coalition is this that you go into in which you have not defined any priorities? This is basically a legitimation exercise for the ANC, having lost political power, to keep themselves and maintain their dominance and hegemony. Okay. So this is the one instance in which the DA, unfortunately, is correct.
Okay, so in that case, I mean, up to now, everything you've said is how the ANC has effectively maneuvered themselves to bring parties together, call it what you like, for their benefit. Then why would the DA have followed suit?
Well, I think initially they thought, perhaps in good faith, perhaps naively, that this is an opportunity to exercise some leverage over government, and perhaps we can grant them that good faith. However, they should have realized very quickly that this is not the way in which a GNU is constructed. They should have realized very quickly that the ANC has no intention of actually honoring an agreement anywhere beyond the flimsy statement of intent, and not agree to anything concrete. Because once they agree to something concrete, they lose the power of arbitrage, and they lose the ability to play the game of brinkmanship and manipulation of processes and manipulation of parties inside the process. So it's their naivety which allowed them to do this. Perhaps they really thought that they're doing this in good faith. But look, they also have been in some ways hypocritical, and this is a hallmark that they've displayed throughout. So maybe they thought this is an opportunity in which they piggyback. Maybe they did in good faith, I don't know. But their naivety, I think in the early days, should have suggested that they would have hunkered down and said, fine, we can go with the statement of intent. Let's get down some concretes around priorities and around what we want to spend money on, what those priorities would be, and how you kind of allocate those portfolios. So even negotiating which positions which would go into which ministries, for example, things in security and policing, if the ANC says that their own internal factions have been using and abusing them, then certainly they should not go to any party which has been part of that, so that they can use and continue to abuse those processes.
Yeah, good point.
That's the kind of negotiation you hope would have happened, but it didn't.
And maybe the point that you make about the statement of intent and just how loose it is, so there's no clear rules of engagement. Maybe that confirms why it's been so difficult for the parties to go through a week without some sort of argument or the other, right? So with that in mind, what then would you make of, whether it's sincere or not, the ANC's move via their Secretary General to consider expanding the GNU, bringing in, I think his name, two parties, the MK and the EFF, two parties which the DA has often said they will not work with them at all. In fact, they want to keep them out of power.
Yeah, I'm surprised that that's the case. I thought that they wanted to go for BOSA and another minuscule party because, look, that works to the ANC's advantage. But maybe the ANC is now calculating that they need to kind of redraw some of the factions that have left the party institutionally. Now, it makes sense politically if dominance and hegemony is your end goal. But if your question is slightly different, that is, what is the purpose of bringing these people in? And I don't mean your question. I mean the ANC's. Are they not saying any of the issues that were sticking points for these people to have either been expelled or have had to voluntarily leave, or whatever caused the rift and the fractionalism in our party in the first place? Are we not re-importing those? And that's exactly what they're doing. So you can now consolidate power, but you are going to re-import, if not today, then certainly tomorrow, many of the fractures that gave rise to the splits and the schisms in the first place.
Okay, we're on to news time. So one quick question. What then do you make of the national dialogue? Let's just call it a multi-party grouping of sorts. What do you make of it on the eve of it? Yeah.
Well, it shouldn't have happened to begin with. Our problem is not a lack of dialogue, and one should never dissuade anyone from talking in democracy, which is what democracy is about. You talk as much as we can. But there is so much talk going on. The diagnostic of our problem is that we have a failure of government, not a failure of dialogue.
Okay, got that. A failure of government, not a failure of dialogue. That's a quote. Ibrahim Fakir, much appreciate your time here on The National Pulse, which is exactly that. The National Pulse is dialogue, reflecting the pulse of the nation. Let's get the news. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the top stories, National Convention Prep Task Team reacts to the withdrawal of foundations and Nadlega shows accountability on money spent on the National Convention. For SFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good afternoon. The National Convention Preparatory Task Team says the withdrawal of some foundations has not affected its work. Last week, several foundations, including the Thabo Mbeki, Biko, FW, de Klerk and Desmond and Leah Dudu, announced their withdrawal, citing issues including elite capture, the date and finances allocated to the National Convention, which will take place on Friday. The PTT chairperson, Buchoko de Klerk, addressed the media at UNISA in Pretoria on the readiness of the event.
This process is not about the foundations. It's not about any one of us sitting here today. It's about ordinary South Africans. I don't think there is a slightest impact. And I must say, over the last 4 days, so much was done compared to the past several months that I can say as a matter of fact. And hence our confidence that we will hand this process to South Africans on Friday and Saturday.
DA leader Johnston Hazen has taken a swipe at the upcoming national dialogue, describing it as an inside stitch-up designed for the ANC to revive its electoral fortunes. Hazen was briefing the media at the party's headquarters in Bruma, east of Johannesburg today. The DA was the first party to withdraw from the national dialogue after its Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry, Andrew Whitfield, was fired by President Cyril Ramaphosa. The Thabo Mbeki Foundation and other legacy foundations of stalwarts have also withdrawn from the national dialogue, citing issues surrounding funding. Hazen says the national dialogue is an illegitimate initiative that lacks all credibility.
And even former President Mbeki, who at the time was incredibly critical of our withdrawal from the GNU, which he expressed in an open letter, has now come to exactly the same conclusion that we came to, that this is an insider stitch-up designed so that the ANC can revive its electoral fortunes, rather than a genuine discussion and action plan about the way forward.
The National Health Department has once again condemned protests by Operation Dudula and other civic groups targeting healthcare facilities. This follows demonstrations where protesters blocked access to service based on nationality and documentation status. 3 Operation Dudula members were released on free bail today after storming the Lillian Ngoyi Clinic in Diepkloof in Soweto after questioning patients about their nationality and demanded identity documents. The department spokesperson, Foster Mohale, says the disruption of healthcare service will not be tolerated.
We have since reached out to the leadership of Operation Dudula for a sit-down meeting in order to find long-lasting solution to these challenges. Of course, this is a societal issue. It's not mainly about health, but we believe that with sober minds, we can be able to find long-lasting solution.
Whistleblower Patricia Mashale says she feels vindicated by the Free State High Court decision, which has dismissed with costs the provincial order of defamation granted against her. Deputy National Police Commissioner on Crime Prevention, Shadrack Sibiya, in November 2024, sought to have the court declare social media statements written about him declared unlawful and defamatory. Sibiya had approached the court accusing Mashale of defamation of character and seeking to interdict her from further posting what he labelled as defamatory statements. The statements in question includes allegations that Shadrack Sibiya tampered with the crime scene of the night Senzo Meyiwa was killed. Mashale believes this judgment can be used by other whistleblowers.
I'm really just relieved. I'm glad that it's over, and I'm glad that I've been vindicated as a whistleblower. And I hope it will also assist other whistleblowers in the future, because it's been listed as a reported case on SAFLE. So it will be used as case law by other whistleblowers in the future. Yeah, that's all I can say for now. And we've been waiting for a very long time for this judgment. And
U.S. President Donald Trump has announced that he will hold a press conference later today to address ending crime, murder and death in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. The president has spent days railing against crimes and homelessness in the Democratic-led city, with reports that he may deploy the National Guard in what some have called a federal takeover of the Washington, D.C. Sharon Bryce Pease reports that protests have already been planned against the possibility of a federal takeover of the city.
Trump has described Washington, D.C. as totally out of control and has reportedly already deployed FBI agents in overnight shifts to assist local law enforcement prevent car hijackings and curb violent crime. Democratic Mayor Muriel Bowser has pushed back at that characterization and pointed out that violent crime had declined for the last 2 years after a post-pandemic spike in 2023, while local police stats place violent crime at a 30-year low. Trump compared his anticipated actions to that of addressing illegal border crossings, saying he would take care of the capital. Sharon Bryce Pease, SABC News, New York.
Recapping the top story, the National Convention Preparatory Task Team says the withdrawal of some foundations has not affected its work. I'm on Delambana for SFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In sports, the Sawa Bafana aim to sink wounded Guinea in a pivotal Chan Group showdown. Three-way tie ignites Currie Cup title race, and golf cruises past Wang into the last 32 in Cincinnati. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Midrand has a stationary vehicle reported at Buccleuch Interchange, and Garsfontein Road southbound in Pretoria, a crash near Matt Street. In KZN, the N3 westbound in Pietermaritzburg, a stationary truck before Ortman Road, and Umgeni Road westbound, slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound, queuing towards Hospital Bend, and Main Road northbound, slow moving towards Muizenberg. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
With misinformation and disinformation around us all the time, where can we turn to for news and information that is not fake? Radio, of course, your number one trusted source of reliable and truthful news and information. For over 3 decades, we have been a signatory to the BCCSA Broadcasting Code of Conduct, and we pride ourselves as a trusted source of information. Say no to false news and disinformation that circulates online. Radio, keeping it real and fighting fake since day one. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So I certainly welcome your comments based upon the conversation I had with Ibrahim Fakir. Not so much even commenting about whether the ANC wants to expand the GNU, but whether it really is a GNU in the first place. Once again, saying it's a coalition of multi-parties, with really two parties very much on the front seat, right? So that's one. But of course, the Operation Tadula story and the Ministry of Health and where they're going to go. They're going to meet sometime in this week. You can comment about that. Many people talking about that. Then the issue of the 5 Al Jazeera journalists, 6 in all, effectively being wiped off, really, in a targeted attack on them yesterday, we understand, in Gaza, in Palestine. You can comment about that, but other things too. And let me just tell you, we'll chat just now. We'll be following up the story of the Daily Maverick expose, so don't miss that, with Peter Louis Myberg, because they've got now part 2 around that story of the IDT contractor ripping off workers, so I understand. So we'll talk about that too. But let's pick up on the DA once again. So, having touched on the GNU expansion, the DA said a lot more. John Steenhuisen, the DA leader, held a press briefing, and he effectively revealed the plans of the DA to grow important issues like jobs, and then issues of their thoughts on BEE, the Employment Equity Act, and the Expropriation Act as well. So what we've done is this, right? We've picked out some of the key, maybe 4 key sound bites that's come out of that presser, and here they are. Firstly, he talked about an individual, giving that person a name, Kabelo and BEE, and this is what he said.
He doesn't get tenders because he is not one of the lucky few in the country to be politically connected. And he doesn't have support because BBBEE in practice has become a massive hurdle rather than a help, as businesses are forced to comply with the onerous and costly criteria if they're to have full access to the opportunities. And in many cases, achieving those criteria are just simply beyond the available cash flow of small and medium and micro enterprises, making it so much harder for them to prosper, while larger, connected organizations and operations continue to rake in the rich rewards that come with political proximity and advantage. The perverse incentive of BBBEE has become that large companies now can cut out all SMEs to inflate their own BE credentials. And sadly, this isn't just Kabelo's story. It is increasingly the story of millions of South Africans who are locked out of a system that rewards the connected and punishes the rest of us. Because here is the hard truth. South Africa's economy is in the ICU. Over the last 15 years, our GDP per capita has shrunk by 10%. Unemployment has climbed from 22% to nearly 33%. And you add discouraged job seekers into that mix, and it's well over the 43% mark. And while this country is bleeding, and while our people are suffering, the government wants to now spend hundreds of millions of rands on a national dialogue, a talk shop with no action, no reform, no plan, and now, by the looks of things, even more dwindling support, with the announcements of further major foundations withdrawing from it.
A talk shop, no plans. Just to correct me if I'm wrong, were the DA not part of the national dialogue in the first instant? Anyway, John Steenhuisen then spoke about other things, including the very important issues of economic policies, or maybe the lack thereof, the way he sees it, holding our economy back.
And the first order of business in this plan is to target 3 major roadblocks that we see, which are holding our economy back and preventing economic growth, inward investment, and the ability of entrepreneurs and others to succeed in a country like South Africa. These 3 roadblocks are BBBEE, Employment Equity, and the Expropriation Act. BBBEE and the racial quotas that go along with it have failed. Over the last decade, black unemployment has grown, and black household income has fallen dramatically. These policies have failed, and together with expropriation without compensation, creates an environment that deters investment, that hobbles growth and job creation, and ensures that the majority of South Africans remain locked out of opportunity in this country. And this is the problem which people like Kabelo and millions like him face on a daily basis. And it is the reason why investors are steering clear of South Africa. These policies don't just simply fail, they cause significant harm to the people who actually need our help the most. People like Kabelo, who need a government that's working with them, not one that is constantly working against them. And so, it is essential now that these policies go. As South Africa stands at this important national crossroads, and a time for action to be able to move forward in the right direction, it is essential that they do. Let me be very clear. Let me be very clear. The DA is not against transformation.
The DA is not against transformation, a point emphasized by its leader, John Steenhuisen. Now, what does he think about commissions? There's a sense, as you know, in the latest commission that came around state security and other things that are around safety and whether that's going to work, or, as we've heard, reflected on the airwaves here from many of the callers to say, oh my goodness, yet another talk shop. So what does he think about the role of commissions in South Africa?
This about commissions. Commissions are only as good as the outcomes. And that is the reality. And sadly, our track record on this is very poor. The Sariti Commission of Inquiry, no one was held accountable. We've seen now the State Capture Commission inquiry. Nobody's been held accountable. No senior politician is sitting behind bars. No massive civil recovery has happened on any significantly connected individual. It's as if it's just going to fade into the distance. And so I hope that the current Commission of Inquiry into Police Management will resolve in something. But the reality is, and it's the kind of same point I'm making about the national dialogue, is that it's no use having these recommendations if we don't get on and implement them. There's a clothing company, there's a famous slogan that says, just do it. And I think we need to do that in South Africa. Let's stop talking about it. Let's take the Zondo Commission and let's put some crack people onto absolutely getting and securing convictions. Let's get the rope and the best advocates we can find. Let's get the best prosecutors we can find. Let's get the best forensic, and the evidence is there. The spade work's been done. The Hawk should have been sitting at the Zondo Commission writing out the dockets while the evidence was being led. And yet we're still stuck, inertia, talking about corruption, talking a good game about eliminating corruption, but what have we actually done to secure convictions? What have we actually done to make sure that somebody sits behind bars? And what have we made sure to, the very least we could have done was to ensure that these individuals mentioned don't make it onto the lists of our political parties.
Interesting. Just do it. What did Barack Obama say? Yes, we can, right? So here's a good example of Nike, in fact, and their Just Do It line becoming political mainstream, isn't it? Right, talking about sport and leisure wear, what about the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture? Well, he is in the news, right, for the use of, for tweets that's centered around the K word. In fact, it's such a level already, Action SA wanting to take action on that. So what does the DA leader, John Steenhuisen, feel about that?
Sorry. And I don't want to be accused of ducking out of it. So let me just say I don't think that that language has any place in South Africa. Just as singing Kill the Boer has no place in South Africa. I don't believe that those epithets or words belong in South Africa. I think that there's an extra duty of care on leaders in society to be careful about what they say and how they say it, and to ensure that we don't divide people and that we don't use these racial epithets. And I think that there needs to be consistency. We've had a number of instances in our party where individuals have said things that we felt were not correct, and we've taken action against them. They've been removed from public office, and we have dealt with them. And I think there needs to be consistency. It cannot be all right for one person to say something just because they have a certain skin color, but it's not right for another person to say something. We need to be consistent in this. And I think that these terms are hurtful, hateful, and have no place in the democratic discourse. We have enough opportunities in Parliament to have discussions about where we're going as a country and what we need to do. I don't think that we need to be using social media and using the type of offensive and hurtful words that are used. And there needs to be consistency. And when one party or persons are called out, that consistency needs to carry through.
Hurtful, hateful, there needs to be consistency. That is the voice of the DA leader, John Steenhuisen. What's very important now is what's your voice. Now, you can connect on multiple ways. You can call in live, and I trust that you've got the number saved unless you're listening in for the very, very first time. The regulars must save the number so we can hear you. You can tweet as well using that hashtag, The National Pulse, or you can send us a WhatsApp. So WhatsApp, text or voice notes, 30 seconds maximum with the voice note, 0614 104 107, and to call in live, it's 086 000 2032. This is the National Pulse.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. You're listening to the National Pulse.
I was going to say, welcome to the National Dialogue. I just wanted to say it anyway. Welcome to the National Dialogue. Well, in many ways it is. You know that, right? Let's talk about another big issue. As you know, it is really dominated the headlines over the last few days, right? And that is the expose by the Daily Maverick, right? Which involved the suspended IDT CEO, Tebogo Malaka. Now, today, there's a development on that story. The Daily Maverick released a story involving the suspended CEO as well as Colin Mashawana. Now, let's find out exactly what he said, what is claimed by the Daily Maverick. With me is Peter Louis Myberg, the Daily Maverick's investigative journalist. Peter, appreciate your time as always on the National Pulse.
Hello, Ashraf. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to unpacking this issue.
Yeah, so okay. Let's just start with what was said last week. Very quickly, in a quick one-liner, so we have context, and then you can tell us what's up today.
Yeah, well, so last week, a 60,000 Rand Dior bag containing 60,000 Rand was placed on the table during a meeting with Tebogo Malaka and Pasha Makholane. The latter is the spokesperson of the IDT. And the context of that conversation clearly shows that there was an attempt to silence me, for me to not publish a story into Ms. Malaka's property dealings. And the center of today's investigation, one of the key elements is this property in the Waterfall Country Estate. And then there's also her ties to Colin Mashawana as a businessman and also leads the Colin Mashawana Foundation. And then the issue of the unpaid EPWP workers, which the Colin Mashawana Foundation has after they had an IDT contract to run these EPWP schemes on behalf of the IDT.
Okay, so tell us more about today. What actually are you suggesting that you have evidence for?
Well, we've got evidence, most crucially and most concerningly, that when Tebogo Malaka was the CEO of the IDT, Mr. Colin Mashawana paid at least 200,000 Rand towards her property development in the Waterfall Country Estate. Very shortly after the first such payment, the IDT awarded a 60 million Rand contract to the Colin Mashawana Foundation for running these EPWP schemes. It was utterly, it came as a total shock to everybody in the NGO community because in previous years, those allocations were very evenly distributed among scores of NGOs working across South Africa. Now, for the first time, in an unprecedented manner, the IDT awarded a very large chunk to only one organization to run the bulk of the EPWP schemes in provinces like Limpopo and also in the Free State and elsewhere. Then also, when the money started flowing towards the Colin Mashawana Foundation, there was another payment later by the businessman towards Ms. Malaka's property. So there are these very concerning dealings between the two of them. And then in the background, the Colin Mashawana Foundation was not properly paying these EPWP workers for whom it was running these employment schemes.
So let me not assume anything. What do you deduce from this?
Well, so I deduce firstly, so there should be no business dealings between a CEO of a state-owned body and a contractor who gets contracts from that state body, right? So we already have those two payments. Then the second element is the missing money. So the IDT goes and pays the Colin Mashawana Foundation, but there are hundreds of EPWP workers who did not receive their salaries. Now, I think that is more than sufficient grounds for us to at least pose the question, are some of these missing funds being channeled into Ms. Malaka's property? Because we know that Mr. Mashawana made at least 2 transfers towards her property. Where was that money coming from? All of this fits into a very narrow little window, very narrow little timeline. The development in Waterfall Country Estate, interestingly, only really kicked into gear very soon after the first millions of rands were paid from the IDT to the Colin Mashawana Foundation. So we put all these facts on the table, and we let the reader decide what the optics, what it points to.
Well, it certainly does sound very, very damning. Now, I have to tell you, I mean, we had the family member of the IDT CEO, Tebogo Malaka, coming on Friday, and be very clear to say, the CEO has been set up. This thing is just not true. None of this happened, and there's no way you can even allege any degrees of corruption or bribery in of course, in terms of the last week's story, right? But, I mean, moving forward, I mean, it gets you thinking that if it is simple as this, where you get awarded a 60 million rand tender, which is huge, as you said, it goes to one, not to multiple companies on the one hand, and at the same time, or even before that, there's money's being paid for a private housing development. Isn't that like such an obvious thing? Why would anyone, including the CEO or anybody else, agree to a paper trail like that, which is so simple to pick up?
Well, it's not the case though. It seems simple and obvious after the fact. After a journalist painstakingly over the course of 6 months devotes hours and hours of research and forensic news into this single issue. It only becomes obvious once the issue is exposed. These sort of dealings happen in the dark. They happen between a couple of individuals secretly behind the backs of the IDT board, behind the backs of other key IDT role players, etc. Nobody knows about these sort of murky dealings until somebody shines a light on it. So they assume that they can get away with it, and they probably mostly do in terms of the broader corruption dynamic in South Africa. But in those select instances where we do get enough information, a whistleblower informs us of information, or on our own enterprise efforts, we put these these factual findings together and make these conclusions, then only does it seem obvious. But certainly, there's a lot of legwork that's been into this, and they mostly, I think, get away with it, which is why they think it is worth a gamble to get involved in this kind of thing.
I mean, just before we conclude, I see the Colin Mashawana Foundation issuing a press release, a statement saying they strongly refute the misleading implications published in the recent article about the Daily Maverick. I mean, I don't think you'd be surprised at that, right?
No, I mean, that is pretty much expected. So we usually have a rebuttal from the affected parties. I would have hoped they would have gone into a little bit more detail, because we very pointedly asked them, especially Mr. Colin Mashawana himself, about the 2 payments, and we have the dates of the payments, because that specifically, to give us some context as to why he was paying the IDT CEO money while the IDT was deliberating on a contract that ultimately benefited his organization. And his rebuttals have not addressed any of those material issues. They've only broadly denied wrongdoing without going into any of those specifics.
Let's end with this. Why do I expect that this is very much Days of Our Lives, and next week we'll get, part 3?
So there is going to be much reporting on this issue, undoubtedly. We have a couple of elements regarding the IDT story that we're still going to unpack, and that will be published within the next couple of weeks. It's 1,800 people involved in this employment scheme in 5 provinces, and we are still learning more and more detail in terms of non-payments and other problems with running this program. And certainly, we'll also be looking into further forensic kind of cash flow oriented information between the RDP CEO or the suspended CEO and Mr. Colin Mashawana and his organization.
Okay, what it does mean is follow the Daily Maverick space. Got that, Peter Louis Meyberger. Appreciate your time here on the National Pulse. Let's get the news headlines. It's just gone for 30 years on Della Mbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, South African manufacturing output recorded its strongest annual growth for this year, rising by 1.9% in June. The National Convention Preparatory Task Team says the withdrawal of some foundations has not affected its work, and the Colombian senator and presidential hopeful Miguel Uribe has died from wounds sustained when he was shot at a campaign rally in June. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Jualane Ngwebe.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 northbound in Bedfordview, queuing on the link to the N12 east at Giluli's interchange. And the N1 southbound in Midrand has a crash reported after Allendale Road. In KZN, traffic lights not working at the intersection of Alpine Road and Henry Road in Cape Town. The N1 outbound slow moving towards the M5 Koeberg interchange, and Duval Road eastbound in Southfield queuing towards the M5 Prince George Drive junction. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Doming Khapele.
To me, by the way, someone says, to me, sounds so disappointed by the Chiefs' victory over Stellenbosch and the defeat of Pirates by Sekhukhune on Sunday.
Disappointed?
I'll leave it to you to comment on that.
Listen, I support all clubs. Don't do that to me. But I'm also supporting Bafana Bafana, who are in action in the Chan, that is the African Nations Championship. They're currently playing Guinea. 33 minutes into the game, Bafana Bafana are leading 1-0, and Miami scored that goal in the first 10 minutes. Meanwhile, Kaizer Chiefs assistant coach Khalil Ben Yusuf says that the plan is to give more game time to their development products as they prepare to compete in the CAF Confederations Cup. Amakosi kicked off their Betway Premiership campaign on a high with a 2-0 win over 10-man Stellenbosch FC. Now, Yusuf says that after finishing outside the top 8 for the second consecutive season, this is a season of delivery for the club.
I think when we discuss, before we come here to Kaizer Chiefs, we discuss about 2 things. First, Kaizer Chiefs must come back because it's one of the biggest teams in Africa. We must win cup. We must come back to Africa. We did it last season. And the second thing, we have to think about our DDC player. They must play. They must get chance to play. For us, we don't have younger players, or he's not. We don't see the age. For us, if you deserve to play, you will play for the team. So we don't think about the name, the age. We think only about performance. The evaluation for the players in the training session. If they perform very well, they deserve to play. We give them the opportunity to play.
So it seems like Chiefs fans want me to congratulate them, Ashraf. So I'm going to say congratulations to all the Chiefs fans and Chiefs for winning. Whether I'm sad or not, it matters.
But you know what they want you to say? You see? But you know what they want you to say? Congratulations to Chiefs on winning, and I'm thrilled that Pirates lost. That will please them so much.
I'm not thrilled when any team loses. Well, clubs participating in the 2025-26 CAF Interclub competitions are set to receive around 1.7 million rand financial boost for the preliminary round. The first leg of the preliminary rounds for both the CAF Champions League and Confederations Cup are scheduled for the 19th to the 21st of September, while the second leg is going to follow, and that is the 26th to the 28th of September to determine who advances to the group stages. South Africa is represented by 4 teams, with Orlando Pirates and Mamelodi Sundowns competing in the Champions League, whereas Kaizer Chiefs and Stellenbosch will be playing in the CAF Confederations Cup. In rugby, the Currie Cup heads into a blockbuster 4th round this weekend, with the Pumas, Cheetahs and Boerland Cavaliers now locked together at the top of the table on 11 points after a dramatic shake-up in round 3. On Friday, Griquas kick off proceedings at 3 p.m. in Kimberley, and that is against the Sharks, who are still chasing their first win of the season. And then Saturday's doubleheader sees the high-flying Pumas host the Lions in Nelspruit, while the Cheetahs welcome a winless Western Province side to Bloemfontein. And on Sunday, Boland will aim to defend their fortress in Wellington against the Vodacom Bulls, who dropped from first to fourth after last weekend's defeat. Meanwhile, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has shed some light on his decision to field captain Siya Kolisi at number 8 instead of his usual number 6 position for the Rugby Championship opener against Australia. Now, the Boks will host the Wallabies in back-to-back tests at Ellis Park on Saturday before hosting them in Cape Town a week later, with the 23-man squad having been named earlier today. Now, one of the few surprises will see Kolisi in an unfamiliar 8-man role, while Kwagga Smith, a traditional number 8, occupies a spot among 5 forwards and 3 backs on the bench, but Erasmus says that he has an ace up his sleeve.
We actually changed our mind there. The more we practiced and prepared, we realized that the only position the guy really plays at 8 is at scrums, and scrums is probably the thing that happens 13 or 14 times in a game. But general play is probably the thing that happens the most, and with having a guy like Peter and Marco and Sia on the field, at the same time, we really feel Australia is a big threat at the breakdown. They really bite hard at the breakdown, and all 3 of those guys are really good guys who clean out at the breakdown, and we feel we're going to need that. So yes, Sia's probably going to pack 6 scrums, and sometimes on defense he might be at flank, and Marco might be at 8. So Don is happy with the way he's scrumming. So it's actually just at scrumming where he's 8. Apart from that, the guys will in general play on defense and attack. So I know I said a couple of weeks ago Sia has a 6, not an 8, but we came to the conclusion that it won't happen so much in the game where we actually need him at 8. So, and then we have Kwagga on the bench who can cover us there as well.
Well, in tennis world number 2, Coco Gauff cruised into the last 32 of the Cincinnati Open after a comfortable win over Xinyu Wan. The last time these two met, the Chinese world number 37 came out top in the second round in Berlin in June 2025. However, this time around, Gauff prevailed 6-3 and 6-2. I'll have more in the next hour.
Okay, and maybe you'll pronounce on Orlando Pirates when you do. Thank you very much for that, Jimmy.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195, and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Bafana are confident they can defeat the West Africans. Meanwhile, the National Elephants want to step their foot down and walk away with victory. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Be part of the thrilling action. South Africa clashes with Guinea on Monday, 11 August at 4 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM celebrates its 89th birthday this month by giving listeners an exclusive opportunity to attend the prestigious Joy of Jazz taking place at the Sandton Convention Centre from the 26th to the 28th of September 2025. To stand a chance to win these sought-after tickets, simply SMS SAFM 89 followed by your name to 41391 and stay tuned to SAFM as we could be calling you. SAFM is the official media partner for the Dipala stage at the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz. Entries open from the 7th of August and close on the 31st of August 2025. Winners will be randomly selected and called from the 1st of September 2025. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. T's and C's apply.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the markets with Makwe Masilela of Makwe Fund Managers. Good to connect on a Monday, Makwe. You got news earlier up about Rainbow Chicken.
Yes, Ashraf, afternoon to you. Remember, this company was unbundled from RCL Foods in July 2024, and they expect profit of headline earnings per share to go up by over 200%, and due to higher sales volumes, continued improvement when it comes to agricultural and operational performance, lower commodity input costs, and lower costs associated with load shedding and avian influenza. And when it comes to the market, global market started the session cautiously up as the U.S.-China tariff truce extension hangs in the balance as the deadline is tomorrow. But the local post early in the session touched a record high with financials powering on, just like other global peers, hoping complacency doesn't kick in. And carry traders Ashraf ramp up bets in emerging markets, piling into South African, Brazil, and Egyptian bonds. Attention now turning to Trump and Putin meeting scheduled for Friday, with hopes that the geopolitics will be eased, and stocks erased earlier gains as hope dims for the Ukrainian talks. And also inflation is on focus as uncertainty weighs on Fed's path going forward. Some market participants, Ashraf, are more convinced that Trump's tariffs will lead to faster inflation and U.S. consumer paying the price. Oil prices edged higher after falling more than 4% last week as investors looked ahead to talks this Friday, that is between U.S. and Russia over the war in Ukraine. Brent crude is up 1.5% at $66 a barrel, and the yellow metal is falling as traders awaited crucial U.S. inflation amid easing geopolitical tensions, and the bullion remains on the edge until there's clarity whether gold bars will face tariffs or not. And the gold, as we're talking now, is down 1% at 3,357, with platinum down 0.1%, and global stocks are now mixed with the JSE down 0.3%, dragged down by our resources. The rand is almost flat, 17.25 to the US dollar, going 3.82 against the pound and 20.61 against the euro.
Right, perfect. Thanks for that, Markware. And of course, we will connect tomorrow. There's another market update, full one for an hour, in fact, coming up from 6 to 7 this evening, as it is every weekday night.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's a big countdown to Friday, which is, I need to get the names right, we have the National Dialogue, but the National Convention that really kickstarts the National Dialogue takes place this Friday, right, at UNISA. So a press conference was held today to address issues around what will be happening on Friday and Saturday in Pretoria. So we picked out some clips which we think are important for you to hear. First up, Kagiso Trust's Boichoko Ditlake talks about delegates attending the first National Dialogue Convention.
The first National Convention is taking place in the coming 4 days. On the 15th and 16th August 2025, which is Friday and Saturday, at this very main institution. The first National Convention marks the start of the National Dialogue process. The National Dialogue itself will take the form of public dialogues across the country in communities and sectors over several months. The process will culminate in the second National Convention in the first half of 2026. The first National Convention is intended, among others, to discuss the need for and value of a national dialogue in South Africa today, to outline and agree on the key themes for discussion in the national dialogue, and agree on the approach and modalities for the nationwide public dialogues at sectoral and community level. And finally, to set up a broadly representative steering committee to coordinate the implementation of the national dialogue going forward. For that purpose, the provision has been made for 1,000 delegates during the convention in the next 4 days. To date, 755 individuals have been invited from over 30 sectors and over 200 organizations. Understanding that the initial allocation may not have covered all sectors sufficiently, a further 245 delegate spaces will be allocated to organizations that have asked to participate in the national dialogue. In allocating spaces, efforts have been made to ensure sectoral diversity and representativity. Special weighting for marginally underrepresented groups and representatives across all sectors of youth, women, and LGBTQI+ individuals. As at yesterday, 557 people from 28 sectors had confirmed their attendance to the National Convention.
Have you been invited and decided that you're going or you're not going to this national convention? Just think about it. Now, the National Dialogue Convention spokesperson is Reverend Zwoitwahu Nebutalu, and he touched on the 700 million rand cost factor.
You see, the budget that people were talking about, the 700 million and so on, it was a budget prepared by the preparatory task team. It's not a government budget. The conceptual framework of how that the dialogue is going to be funded was that 60% will be funded by government from the fiscus and 40% will be funded in cash and in kind by donors. So whether it is the business or it is actually the private sector, civil society has already done a lot. Organizations which have got some infrastructure like churches, local government will come to the party with the venues higher and so on. The question was, what is this budget all about? It's a very important question. The most of the money that has been budgeted for, and it's still a budget, there is no finality because in terms of the government components, Treasury is still discussing with this thing. Most of the money is going to fund community dialogues, which are going to happen at wards and sectorally in a way. So it is expected that we're going to have 3 dialogues per ward for the duration. I think it comes to like 13,600 dialogues. That is where the issues are going to be taking place. That's where ordinary people are going to be discussed about the South Africa they want, the vision of the South Africa they want. So that's where all the budget comes from. This is where, and it is still expected that entities are going to be approached, mobilized by the steering committee, by the EPGs as well, to solicit funding coming not only from the fiscus, because this is a people's project.
This is a people's project. Interesting enough, Tembisa Fakure, who was a guest on Oliver's show on Friday evening, he made the point, which is so interesting. He said, you know what? We don't need a national dialogue. I'm not saying I'm agreeing with him. I'm saying that's what he said. We don't need it. And he said, all it needs is for government ministers to plug in, and government representatives, that is, to plug into talk shows like SAFM, but others all around the country in all languages, right? And they will have a very clear idea of what the national dialogue really is, because they'll have a clear idea of all the issues that are being raised by people in the metropolitan areas, in the rural communities, wherever they are. You'll know what people feel. All you then have to do is just make a note, tabulate them all, dissect it, and then come up with a plan. So, in fact, what the issues are as the first step to the national dialogue, according to him, is like, actually, we know about it already. Just check it out. Just listen, and you will hear it. Think about it. But I need to hear you right after this.
FlySafe's Business Booster is back to help elevate and celebrate small local businesses. Enter now at flysafe.co.za. Tell us about your business, and you could be one of 6 standout enterprises to win 10 return business class flights plus brand exposure across FlySafe's various platforms. Whether you're making, creating, or innovating, we're here to help your business not just take off, but skyrocket. FlySafe, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
Do you know what's hiding behind the colorful packaging of unhealthy food? Big food companies target children with unhealthy packaged foods that hide high levels of sugar, salt, and fat, which could lead to heart disease, diabetes, and hypertension. But the truth is hidden from consumers. Front of package warning labels are a proven solution to help consumers make informed decisions. The government must act now. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front of package warning labels. Sign the petition on heala.org, HEALA.org, by the 30th of September.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Okay, let's hear your thoughts. We're going to go first to Mpumalanga. Alfred, what's your point?
Ashraf, how's it?
Yeah, good to talk to you, Alfred. Go for it.
Thank you, Ashraf. Ashraf, I'm irritated by the propaganda of the Israel government when they want to kill and finish Palestinians. The attitude is informed by hatred, you see. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you will be blaming some of us to say we are speaking not nice against the Israelis. When it's the Israeli government that do these things against the Palestinians, and they are being supported by the entire people in the country, in their own country. Israel, people of Israel themselves, they support what is done by their leaders against the Palestinians. And at the end of the day, Ashraf, they are spreading this propaganda ultimately so that at the end of the day, they try to project themselves very relevant to the situation in Palestine. That is what I just wanted to say in the whole thing when I'm reading Ashraf. Yes.
All right. Well, Alfred, thanks for putting that on the agenda. I think there's so many angles to that. I mean, you saying you're tired of the Israeli propaganda, and it's been supported by the people in their own country. One thing that I'd like to know, and I don't have all the facts, of course, is just what percentage of people in Israel are now supportive of the position of the Israeli government. There's also been massive internal protests within that country who are opposing not just their position regarding Palestine, but also the leadership from Netanyahu in terms of internal as well. So that's one thing. The other one is, of course, many, many people have died. We know about the people who've been killed on October 7, which I think many people have said is indefensible from a citizen point of view, but many may say, it reflects to what happened in 1917 too in terms of this ongoing battle. But the other is more and more countries who you'd never have thought of are now coming out and saying we'll support the Palestinian identity in terms of the state. Of course, the latest one is Australia. So things are changing on that issue, Alfred. Salo in Mokopane, go for it. What's your point?
Thanks for having me, Ashraf. Ashraf,
yep.
I will repeat myself and like the others who were talking about this national dialogue nonsense thing. It is insulting for me if the government of this country doesn't know what are the problems of this country across the board. And then we are going to sit down and discuss the problem that we do know, Ashraf. Like many other listeners and yourself, I think you'll agree that we are talking across the board, all national platform radios, the whole South Africa, Ashraf. We are talking about the very thing that the government they must do. Why should we waste money and another more time, Ashraf, to go and sit and have teas and cook sister and whatnot to talk about what we do know, Ashraf?
But Salo, here's the point, Salo. I think the one part, I mean, you're right. I do agree with you. Like, how can we not know what are the problems in the country? You can ask, if you ask 10 people listening right now, just 10, and say, give me the 10 biggest problems. We all know what they are. But would the national dialogue not then translate into what do we do about the problems? And then you have to ask the next question: if they're going to handle it, then what are the people in Parliament doing at the moment?
Are we saying the current people, the minister and then the current government, they don't know how to solve the problem that we have?
Maybe
That
they
will
maybe
be
they
my
are.
ne-
Maybe
that will be my next question.
Okay.
And luckily, Ashraf, the very same business people that are going to be invited there or who are invited and the other stakeholders, what are they doing at this current in time to solve this problem? Because we're going to go around looking for people who they cannot solve their own problem in their companies, in whatever they are doing, but that they want to solve the problems of the nation.
Okay.
How is it going to work? Ashraf?
Well, Salo, thank you for that. Let me. In fact, let me ask you this: not just to Salo, but everybody listening in, right? No matter what, if you got invited to serve on the national dialogue as one of those eminent persons, would you say yes, or would you say no? What would you say? And if you said yes, what would you use that platform for? Becky in KZN, let's get your thoughts on the dialogue. Becky, hello, you're
Hello.
live. Go for it, yeah.
Yes, sir. I've got a problem with this thing that is being discussed, the national dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
and problems with South Africa. I don't think we have problems with South Africa. The only problem we have in South Africa is about our constitution. The fact that people are complaining left and right, it's because our constitution, we've never had a referendum where we support the constitution. Why people they are complaining, they are talking about free South Africa, blocking people in hospital, they are saying it's because of the constitution that allows people to go there. Is it our constitution or is the constitution of those who were in parliament who approved it? We were not there. As citizens, we'll never approve it. We need a referendum. This dialogue, national dialogue, and so on is not going to help us because these politicians who are there, they are not accountable to us. They are accountable to their parties. The Electoral Act needs to be changed. We need to have a constituency where people will account directly to the voters, not to their political party.
But maybe that's going to come through in the national dialogue. Maybe if that, because I think I'm certainly supportive of that. To say it has to be constituency based. We need to have an MP that speaks to my area. We don't have that. So Becky, thanks for that. Maybe just maybe that will come. I mean, the other one I've said before, if there was nothing else, we don't know what our national purpose is. And if the national dialogue, after all their debating, comes up and say, let's agree this is South Africa's national purpose, and everything for the next 20 years must be directed through the prism of that national purpose, then maybe, just maybe, we're onto a good thing. Maybe, but lots of maybes in that conversation. I know that, right? Okay, further comments. What about Gayton McKenzie? We haven't had a single call on that issue today, but we have certainly one WhatsApp now.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm very disappointed with our Minister of Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie. What he did is shameful, and I think he must just fall on his sword. He must do the honorable thing. It is true that birds of the same feathers flock together. He is no different from Kenny Kunene. In fact, he is worse than him. He is hypocrite. Thank you very much, Peter Maila Machaba from Letswata.
Thanks, Peter. Why do you say he's a hypocrite? Let's see what happens next. He said he's open to investigation, but regarding the use of tweets around the K word going back like over a decade and longer ago. Should he? I think it was Lorenzo Davids who tweeted to say, well, at the very least, he needs to step down now and like basically suspend himself until the whole investigation takes its course. Do you concur with that?
Yeah, this is Anonymous from Durban. The race thing will always be there. It will always be present in South Africa. Yeah, we might act as if we are a true rainbow nation, but deep down, yeah, different races have problems with other races within the country. You know, So this thing of us being a full-on rainbow nation, I don't think it will ever happen. Yeah, it's 2025, but people are still stuck in the old ages.
But does it have to be a full-on rainbow nation? Or does it simply have to be a country that delivers services to the people of our nation, whoever they are? 5 o'clock, here's the news with Greg House.
Top stories: Asawa manufacturing output records its strongest annual growth for this year, and the National Convention Preparatory Task Team says it's ready. Good afternoon, I'm Julani Tulongwebe. South African manufacturing output recorded its strongest annual growth for this year, rising by 1.9% in June. According to Stats SA, the largest positive contributors to the growth included food and beverages and the petroleum, chemical products, rubber and plastics division. Despite this improvement, the sector has been under pressure, weighing on GDP in the first quarter when the economy grew by only 0.1%. Director of Industry Statistics at Stats SA, Nikolai Clausen.
On a month-on-month basis, seasonally adjusted manufacturing production was flat in June 2025 compared with May 2025. This followed month-on-month increases of 2.2% in May and 1.6% in April. Looking at the bigger picture, the second quarter of the year saw a turnaround. After a slump in the first quarter, seasonally adjusted manufacturing bounced back with a 1.5% increase in the second quarter.
The National Convention Preparatory Task Team, or PTT, says the withdrawal of some foundations has not affected its work. Last week, several foundations, including the Thabo Mbeki, Biko, FW de Klerk and Desmond and Leah Dudu, announced their withdrawal, citing issues including elite capture, the data and finances allocated to the National Convention, which will take place on Friday. PTT chairperson Boichoko Ditlhake addressed the media at UNISA in Pretoria on the readiness for the event.
This process is not about the foundations. It's not about any one of us sitting here today. It's about ordinary South Africans. I don't think there is a slightest impact. And I must say, over the last 4 days, so much was done compared to the past several months that I can say as a matter of fact. And hence, our confidence that we will hand this process to South Africans on Friday and Saturday.
The Umfolozi municipality at Kwambonambi on the KwaZulu-Natal North Coast has raised concerns over the high number of GBV-related murders in its Ward 8. This follows the brutal murder of a 16-year-old girl last week. It's alleged that Ketoguhle Mncube, who was doing matric, was reported missing on the 31st of July and her body was discovered dumped close to her home on the 7th of August. Mayor Philani Bengu says Mncube is the 12th woman to be killed in the area since the start of the year. Bengu says so far there has only been one conviction in these murders.
This is not the first accident in the same Ward 8 under Umfolozi local municipality. As we all know that this is a tragic incident where young women are being killed in the name of love or killed by the people who are supposed to protect them. Out of these 11, there's only one who's behind the bars. The rest, they are outside. So that is worrying us the most.
The family of a Gauteng crime warden, Chesney Kepler, who was allegedly shot and killed by her boyfriend in December last year, say they have been let down by the justice system. The Protea Magistrates Court in Soweto has granted murder-accused Mandla Buthelezi bail of 20,000 rand. This has angered the community of Eldorado Park, who stormed out of court swearing and shouting justice for Chesney. Buthelezi, a former police officer, allegedly shot himself following the ordeal but survived. Elsa B. Witten is the deceased's aunt.
That is heartbreaking news for us. We are praying for a justice system that will give us the power to say thank you. But we can't say thank you. Why must we have tears all the time? Why must women abuse and child abuse be a factor in this world? Can't it stop? Can't it stop? We're crying out help for them, but they can't help us. Our justice system is failing us. We are a heartbroken community and a family. How do we rectify this? How? 20,000 bail for a life that can't come back, man. Come on, man.
The Colombian senator and presidential hopeful Miguel Uribe has died from wounds sustained when he was shot at a campaign rally in June. He had been in hospital since the attack. A 15-year-old accused of carrying out the shooting was arrested within hours of the crime, but police have said they are pursuing the masterminds behind the attack. The BBC's James Reid has the story.
The shooting of Miguel Uribe Turbay shocked Colombia and revived fears of a return to the political violence of the 1980s, when several presidential candidates were assassinated. The 39-year-old conservative was campaigning in Bogota when he was shot in the head. 6 suspects have been arrested, including a 15-year-old boy accused of carrying out the attack. Mr. Uribe's life had already been marked by violence. When he was 4, his mother was kidnapped by the Medellin drug cartel and killed during a botched rescue attempt.
Recapping the top story this hour, South African manufacturing output recorded its strongest annual growth for this year, rising by 1.9% in June. For SFM News, I'm Cholani Tulongwebe.
In sports this hour, Bafana Bafana 1-1 draw at halftime against Guinea in Chan. Strongbok team named for rugby champs opener, and 3-way tie ignites Currie Cup title race. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Centurion has a crash before Old Johannesburg Road. All lanes are open. In Pretoria, the N4 westbound has a crash before Rousseau Street, and on Fountain Circle southbound, slow-moving traffic reported through the circle towards Euphues Road. In KZN, the N3 westbound, a stationary vehicle before Pavilion Shopping Centre exit, and the M4 southbound, a crash near the Blamey Jacobs Road exit, causing delays. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound, slow-moving towards Bunga Avenue exit, Voortrekker Road eastbound in Parow has a crash at McIntyre Road, and Strand Road in Stickland, a crash at Peter Barlow Street. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195, and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
West Africans Niger are hunting for nothing but 3 points, while Bafana Bafana are pumped to achieve a win. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Niger confronts South Africa on Friday, 15 August at 7 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This year, the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz Festival presents 3 unforgettable days deep in the art and heart of jazz. From the 26th, 27th, and 28th of September, Umu Sankare, Abapemu, Jasmia Horn, Silent Moore and the Noisemakers, Najbonk Trio, Michelle Ndingio-Jello, Willem Siini, Gabby Mutuba, and over 50 world-class acts will be ready to welcome you and yours to 4 magnificent stages of the Sandton Convention Center. Take me there. Buy your tickets at Ticketmaster now. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Interestingly, Joseph Matunjo, who's the AMCU president, right, as well as the interim Labour Party executive, made the point about "we warned you," referring to the national dialogue, suggesting that we warned you it's not going to work. I mean, that's it. The truth is there's some elements of it that are stop-start, but we can't say it's a failure because we actually haven't started it. But it is significant that some of the founding protagonists of the national dialogue, including the Thabo Mbeki Foundation in particular, are not part of, certainly not part of the opening day or the opening ceremony that really sets it all up. And you may wonder, and I know they've raised their issues, they issued their press statement last week, but you just wonder what does that really mean as well, right? In the meantime, let's see, what we're going to do. We're going to chat. I mentioned to you earlier on that we'll chat to Zandile Dabula, the Operation Dudula leader. So we'll chat to her shortly. But I did touch on that point about AMCU and their position. I'm talking about Joseph Mathunjwa. So let's do this. Let's talk to him right away. And now we know that 7 foundations, I've mentioned one of them, Thabo Mbeki Foundation, amongst others, have withdrawn from that task team that prepared just for specifically the National Convention, which is on, Friday, Saturday. They haven't withdrawn from the National Dialogue itself. That they plan to continue, although they've raised some very important issues coming out of that, right? But here's the thought. We've got Joseph Mathunjwa with me, the AMCU president and interim Labour Party executive. In fact, we spoke to him a while back, and what he said then on the show, I think it's just worth replaying. So here it is.
I think firstly, it's unconstitutionally, this national dialogue. And the reason why it's unconstitutionally, who mandated the national dialogue? Where did they get a mandate? And 2, the appropriation of the funds of the state surely must be endorsed by the parliament. I've never heard that the parliament set up the budget and agree on. Thirdly, this national dialogue does not have any legislative powers whereby they can take a decision. Fourthly, we've got a full bloated parliament where we're already paying billions, of which now they are creating the parallel structure instead of using what is already been budgeted for. And then fifthly, one can also say that the very same national dialogue, it selected eminent persons that we don't know which constituency are they representing, and then who mandated them on these matters. And going further, these monies that they are wasting, we are sitting with a high rate of unemployment, in particular the youth, which is the future of this country. We are sitting at the highest level of the crime, which is compared to other countries in the world. We are sitting with gender-based violence. We are sitting with all kind of social ills. This 700 or 800 million, whatever, could have been used to build some bridges in Eastern Cape where our children, school kids, they still cross the rivers using drums to go to school. There are so many social ills in this country, and this national dialogue, it will never, ever address those issues because they don't have legislative powers.
Well, that's the voice of Joseph Mathunjwa then. Let's get the voice of Joseph Mathunjwa now, the AMCU president and interim Labour Party executive. Good to connect with you on the National Pulse once again.
Hi, good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you so much. So clearly you were critical from a constitutional point of the national dialogue when we last spoke, but also you were critical of its ability to service deliver. You still hold that position?
Indeed, we still hold that position as a Labour Party of South Africa with regard to this national dialogue. And also, we still believe that the government and its foundations, they were just abusing the word national dialogue, because the word national dialogue really, it's normally used when the country is in serious crisis. For instance, there is a political transition where maybe you need to align forces from different political political formations. So in this instance, there was no such a crisis.
Okay, so, but can we agree that outside of spending too much time talking about whether the national dialogue should be called the national dialogue in the same way we talk about the GNU and whether that should be called the GNU and whether it's constitutional or not, can we agree that in fact we have a problem in our country? We have many problems around service delivery. You alluded to many of them yourself, right? And it appears that we are unable to deliver on that, whether it's a party on its own in government or whether it's a party governing through a multi-party coalition of sorts. Either way, there are far too many examples of the people being hopelessly shortchanged, and that's in rural communities, in metropolitan areas, and therefore something has to give, something has to happen.
Indeed, no one can deny that. We are talking about socio-economic crisis. So therefore, the socio-economic crisis of South Africa can be resolved through the parliament. We've elected the parliament, as we've said earlier on, in our first interview with yourselves. So now we shouldn't misinterpret incompetency with the crisis. So we've got a high level of incompetency of the leaders of the country. That is what it's all about. So this needs to be addressed. And you cannot, they create a problem and then they label the problem as a national crisis, which needs, a national dialogue, of which indeed that is not supposed to be like that at the end of the day.
But the question is how?
Sorry, let me finish this.
Yeah.
So if we do have, that means let's dissolve the parliament, give us a referendum. And then also this referendum should be giving us an opportunity to reset this country by coming to put a new political system, a new electoral system, not this parliamentary democracy whereby even the president, the people of South Africa cannot say anything because it's a parliamentary democracy. But if it's a presidential democracy, people, they directly elect their leaders, and we can put a referendum if we want to unseat that particular president who does not meet what the expectations of the South African. So here is an incompetence of the government.
So to confirm, you saying have a referendum, but would you first dissolve parliament, then the referendum, or have a referendum before you dissolve parliament?
Either way, you can have an interim parliament, and then we can call a referendum. But at the end of the day, we cannot do one and the same system after every 5 years and expect a different outcome. The political system of South Africa is no longer holding at all. We need a new political system, new electoral system that will reset this country. Under the current situation, we is clearly that we are being abused by this illegitimate government, because even the government of national unity is illegitimate. There was no transition. We had a government of national unity when we transit from the Nationalist Party to the Democracy. So therefore, you can't say by ANC losing power in terms of the number of percentage, then you call that a crisis that it results to have a government of national unity. We don't have a crisis here. We should have rerun the election until we've got a majority, or they should have formed a coalition with the DA and not masquerade as a government of national unity, whereas they are a coalition.
Okay. So let's go back to the referendum. And I know, it's not cast in stone, but let's say today, a referendum is all about the question, right? How would you frame the question? What question would you ask to have this referendum on?
Can you repeat your question?
I was saying a referendum is all about a specific question, right? That demands a yes-no answer, right?
Yes.
What would be that question for you then in that referendum?
Do we still want this constitution democracy, the constitutional democracy that we have?
Okay.
Two, do we want this electoral system that is running the country currently? So basically, those are the things that you can put forward and say, if the people of South Africa say they want a new electoral system or the new political system, which I prefer presidential democracy, where we can elect our president direct as people of South Africa. And two, if you want to reset in terms of the political system, do we want federalism or what? Give power to the provinces. In United States, they will call it states. Then you've got governor. In South Africa, we've got premiers. So you give power to the people. People, let them decide how they want to be run, not be decided by 300 people in the parliament out of 60 million of people of South Africa.
What do you think, and here's the last question, what do you think is the weakness of our system, our current political system?
It's been weak from the onset. It's a system of incompetence that is there. And two, we don't have a total emancipation of the economy. So therefore, the economy is just centralized to the few elite who happen to be the beneficiary of a colonial economic system, of which it doesn't trickle down to every person in South Africa. So the economic, nearly economic policies which does not address the needs of the South African. So the economy hasn't properly been transformed. That's why you see this much of corruption that is taking place, because there's limited resources going to few people, whereas we've got a country that is rich. For instance, I mean, let's make an example.
All right, just a quick one.
Quickly, I mean, the quick one. Because we don't have a control of these minerals of this country, an investor can come from Turkey and close Zulu anthracite colliery, and 1,000 people losing jobs, but the government cannot revoke the license. So some of these mines need to be nationalized and serve the interests of the people rather than serving the interests of the multi-international field.
That's where we can leave it. Let's get on to that referendum then. According to Joseph Matunjwa, the AMCU president and interim Labour Party executive, the referendum that questions the revision of our political system in the country more important than a national dialogue, which is what we kickstarting on Friday, in fact. Maybe we should have a referendum on that, isn't it? This is the National Pulse.
This Women's Month, SAFM stands with the women shaping South Africa's future. Under the theme, Building Resilient Economies for All, we honor the pioneers, the problem solvers, and the everyday heroes driving change. Stay tuned as SAFM brings you powerful stories and meaningful conversations that move us. SAFM, celebrating women, celebrating progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So we were due to chat to Zandile Dubula, the Operation Dudula leader, but she's just apologized because she's in a meeting that is overrunning, right? Unfortunately, so that's not going to happen now. Now, you know, initially in the conversation with Foster Mohale, he made the point that they will meet from the Department of Health and Operation Dudula. That should happen not today, but sometime in the week. She makes the point that they're in a meeting with the minister. Whether that's the Minister of Health, I don't quite know, but she's in a meeting with the minister as it stands. I would suspect it's the Minister of Health, but there's no confirmation of that anyway. But as soon as we know, we will talk about it. Now, having said all of that, let's just reflect on what happened. 3 women linked to Operation Dudula, accused of disrupting services at the Soweto Lillian Ngoyi Clinic, have been released by the Orlando Magistrates Court, and they're due back in court on September the 10th. Now, the Operation Dudula leader, Zandile Dubula, spoke outside the court, and she made the point that she would be meeting the Minister of Health today, right, and which will confirm whether that was actually the minister she's referring to right now. But very significantly, she made a few pronouncements, and I want you to just reflect on what she said.
It's just to frustrate us. There's no ways that you will keep people in jail for 5 days and give them free bail and take them out on a warning. We have been treated like this is a Schedule 6 offense. The government of the ANC and the GNU together, they are taking us back to the apartheid days. They are using the system. It's just coming in a different color now. They're using the police to work against us. We've now learned and understand, and we talk to them. They don't like doing what they are doing. But because the instruction is pumile, and they've signed an oath, they will have to act against us. Now we're going to do what the ANC had did to the apartheid government. Now we're going to do it to the ANC government, together with the JNU, whatever they call themselves. We're not going to stop. I'm not inciting violence, but if we have to fight, if this country has to be ungovernable, then let it be. We're going to operate. There is nothing wrong that we have done. We have not broken any laws. Instead, we are implementing and enforcing the laws that the government is failing to enforce. So Masuka Lakedas, unfortunately, it's very far. We can't chant. We'll just chant until Sifika Lapaya. Singene Motwen. Commanders, let's find. Let us all go to course. And today we have a meeting with the Minister of Health. Yes. He must tell us why did he issue an instruction that our people need to be arrested when we do this operation. So commanders, thank you so much for the support. This is the struggle. The struggle has just begun. Mama commanders were to Aboshwa for a week. It means, manje, this thing is real. Ne? And it's not going to stop now. And unfortunately, the government needs to know, with even the country, who's Shagule country, because South Africans are angry.
Okay, she said lots of things. The last part, South Africans are angry. And then the police are working against us. And then I'm not inciting violence. But if we have to fight, and if that's the case, if the country is ungovernable, then let it be. Okay. This is the National Pulse. Reaction from you. Let me hear it. There's calls, and then just to repeat that point, not just we are angry, country will burn because South Africans are angry. What do you think? Impo in Randfontein. Go for it. Hello, Impo.
My brother and the listeners of SAFM, the issue that I wanted to raise, I think there's a contradiction between what Mr. Matunzi was saying. He's raising an issue of referendum. There is a platform for a national dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
All what he raised, those things can be part of the national dialogue. Why would it be difficult for the dialogue to discuss the referendum? And then he says Parliament is there to discuss. He comes back and says, no, the country can't be represented by only 300 people and when there's 16 million. You see, sometimes, and I think you guys give them to run the matter because people are not logical. And the guy just pulls something and disappears without being drilled to say, did you apply yourself before you are called in? The issue here is that there's a platform to discuss all these problems, and I think they must fight for the agenda. I mean, the issue would be, can we fight to get our issues in the agenda? As against, we don't want this one. We want
Okay,
this
you're okay. Impa, you. I think that's interesting. You're saying it's going to go ahead anyway. In fact, what he's talking about, the referendum, the precursor to that may well be the national dialogue, because they may come back and make all those suggestions to say, this is what we propose. And remember, it's not one or two people. It's the plan is to consult through the length and breadth of South African society, civil society. So they could come back and say, this is our, can I call it master plan, M plan? This is our plan, right? And maybe it will be good. That's the point. Michael in Durban, right? You're live. Go for it. What's your point?
Okay, thanks, Ashraf. No, my point about this national dialogue is that for a concern that already people that will be leading discussions by so-called eminent leaders, they are already known by President, and we don't know how they were selected and which community they were coming from, or they were just taking as social media influencers or people of certain status within South Africa. But this should be a bottom-up approach, not this up and bottom approach, vice versa. Secondly, I would like to second Mr. Matunja. If you look at our last election, voting population was 40 million, but parties what they voted turnout 16 million.
Mm-hmm.
It tells you that people of this country, they are just so undesirable to the voting process because for a number of years, for 30 years, it has produced similar results. You can't have 22 million voting population, but don't go to polls and vote. Why?
But on the other hand, that I must tell you is happening in many countries in the world. So you can get, they're sitting on, polls of 50, 60% maximum. Does that mean that all are discredited? Yeah.
But if this must 50 plus, it's below 55, where if you look at 20, it's too much. People are so undesirable because this voting thing relying on political parties, think they're going to change things. Nothing. The more they change, the more things stay the same.
Okay, Michael, thanks for that in Durban. By the way, Phineas has got this applause sound ready. So if you're a first-time caller, and we want to applaud you when you call in, so do call in so we can play that applause sound bite. 086 000 2032. The big question is, what is it that you raise? What do you want to get off your chest? 5:30. Here's Greg House with the news headlines.
Good afternoon, I'm Jolani Tulongwebe, making headlines. The Gauteng Legislature's Portfolio Committee on Community Safety says it views the recent killing of 2 police officers in Roodepoort as not only as an attack on the country's law enforcement officers, but also a direct assault on the rule of law. South African manufacturing output recorded its strongest annual growth for this year, rising by 1.9% in June. And finally, Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk says Russia must be aware that the West will not accept the seizure of Ukrainian territories as part of any peace deal. I will have details on these and other stories at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 northbound in Bedfordview, queuing on the link to the N12 east at Kiluli's interchange. The N1 northbound in Midrand, queuing towards New Road, and the N12 westbound, queuing towards the N1 Diepkloof interchange. In KZN, the N3 westbound, a stationary truck after Cliffdale, causing traffic to be stacked. The M4 southbound is a crash near Blamey Jacobs Road exit, and the N2 northbound, a stationary vehicle before the Umhloti exit. In Cape Town, the R300 southbound in Brackenfell, a stationary vehicle before Butler-Ray Road. The N1 outbound has a crash before Marine Drive and Baden-Powell Drive eastbound, queuing towards Strandfontein Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Tumi is saying, you know what, I'm not going to get into this club football debate. Bafana, 100%. Go for it.
Because Bafana are currently in action facing Guinea in the African Nations Championship. South Africa is currently leading 2-1, 70 minutes into the game. Mayema scoring in the 10th minute and Kutumela in the 54th minute. Meanwhile, Orlando Pirates head coach Abdeslam Wadu has lamented how they started their campaign in the Betway Premiership this season as they went 1-0 to Sekhukhune United at home at Orlando Stadium. Despite their dominance in this game, Pirates only had 3 shots on target, and Wadu says that they will have to quickly bounce back from this defeat when they meet his former team, Marumo Gallants, in Bloemfontein tomorrow evening.
The content was very interesting, but a lot of chances. But the true in football, you have to be efficient in the box. If you are not efficient in the box, of course, the opponent can at any time have chances and to punish you. It's what he did today. It's quite the same image as the previous game last season. So yeah, what I said to the boys, it's a lot of disappointment, but the chance that we have in football is to have the opportunity to play quicker and to go to definitely try to win next game. Yeah, but the league is still long, many games. We start bad, but definitely we'll give some rest, and quickly we have to come back to the business.
Well, clubs participating in the 2025-26 CAF Inter-Club competitions are set to receive around 1.7 million rand financial boost for the preliminary round. The first leg of the preliminary rounds for both the CAF Champions League and Confederation Cup is scheduled for the 19th to the 21st of September, while the second leg is the 26th to the 28th of September. South Africa will be represented by 4 teams, with Orlando Pirates, Mamelodi Sundowns competing in the Champions League, whereas Kaizer Chiefs and Stellenbosch FC will be playing in the Confederations Cup. In rugby, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has named a strong team for the side's opening Castle-Lager Rugby Championship match against Australia at Ellis Park on Saturday, with the match day squad featuring 18 Rugby World Cup winners and only one player who made his test debut during the Castle-Lager incoming series. Lions prop Asenathi Ntlabakanye is the least capped player in the squad and could make his second official appearance in a box shirt should he feature against Australia. And here's Erasmus explaining his hopes for the 26-year-old.
Asenati is, we obviously, everybody's talking about the age in our squad, and Frana is not here, Kitsi is not here, there's Faf is not here currently, Mapimpi is not here, so somewhere some other guys must now step up. I know Frans Malherbe is still recovering, and hopefully next year June he is recovered fully to play for us again. But giving Asenati, and that's why I have Bongi next to him, because we know it will be tough in the scrums when he goes on. But we'd love to see the Asenati in open play as well, in general play, because he's really a guy with unbelievable feel for the game. So if he manages himself, manage to do himself justice in the scrums with solid guys scrumming next to and behind him, I would really... I think he's only played about 60 minutes for us. That's probably 25 minutes ball in play. So he hasn't really got the opportunity to show what he has in general play, and that really excites us.
In tennis, world number 2 Coco Gauff cruised into the last 32 of the Cincinnati Open after a comfortable win over Xinyu Wan. The last time these two met, the Chinese world number 37 came out on top 6-3, 6-3 in the second round in Berlin in June 2025. However, this time around, Gauff prevailed 6-3 and 6-2. All right, before I say goodbye, Ashraf, obviously we need to look back at the predictions, as much as I don't want to do this. Okay. But let me just, okay. Sorry about that. I did predict.
Why you choking I would also choke.
Ashraf, allow me, yo. Okay, cool. Chippa United versus Sundowns. I did say Sundowns would win. However, it was a 1-1 draw. Amazulu versus Orbit College. I said it's a draw. However, Amazulu won 1-0. Richards Bay versus Marumo Gallants. I said Richards Bay would win. However, Gallants won 2-1. Guys, yeah. Orlando Pirates versus Kukune United. I said Pirates would win. Pirates lost 1-0. And then I said Swelele versus Golden Arrows, and Swelele actually did win 3-1. So I got 1 out of 5. Betway Premiership 1, Tumi 0.
So you lost 5-1 on the day. Sure. Stick to your sports job, not to your predictions job.
Oh, so just 1 week I get 4 wrong, and then you're telling me to stick to my sports job. Fine. We'll see on Friday how I will do this time around. Maybe because, do you know why things didn't work out? It's because I was just focusing on football. Usually when I have like cricket and stuff, like I flourish. But when it comes to football...
Really, the biggest fault is it has to be Orlando Pirates and Mamelodi Sundowns' fault. I mean, like,
Ashraf,
what is their problem? They didn't deliver. That's poor service delivery.
Literally.
They didn't do that job. How can it be your fault?
I mean, they need to get with the times. But I'll have more on other sports tomorrow.
The Morning Brief.
You will sometimes hear a police officer saying, well, I've not consented to being recorded. I have a right to privacy. Do those arguments hold water, given that they're performing a public function, exercising a public power?
But Section 36 of the Constitution creates a limitation of those rights. So that's why we have other acts such as POPI, other acts such as PAIA. Filming in a public place has never been an issue. You now have the city of Johannesburg wanting cameras that are placed for security reasons on different premises to now register with the council if those cameras point towards a public place. If you're in the public area, your right to privacy is limited.
That's Chet Thomas, crime expert and director of IRS investigations.
Thulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Find the podcast at safm.co.za. Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Let's get to those numbers with Jimmy Moyaha. Jimmy, you've got a story to start with about brand Fabergé.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Yes, quite an interesting story. I mean, the Fabergé brand is a brand that's been around since 1882. It's a fairly old brand. But what I didn't even know until this afternoon, or at least earlier today, was that the brand was owned by a South African business. The company called Gemfields had acquired the Fabergé brand, and it was a wholly owned subsidiary of Gemfields, at least until they announced that they would be selling that brand. So we're going to be taking a look at that. We're going to be unpacking some of the permutations around that sale with our mining analyst at Rosendahl Partners, Wilhelm Herzog, because I want to take a look at the move from the mining companies to get rid of some of their non-core assets. I mean, I'm looking at the likes of Anglo that have decided to get rid of De Beers, but also in the luxury space, a company like Fabergé would fit quite well into a portfolio like LVMH and Richemont and the Kering Group. All three of those luxury brand houses would be happy to have a brand like Fabergé there, but it's going to an American company, and it's going to an American, almost a private equity vehicle on that side of the world. So interesting to look at that, and I want to take a look at what that means for the Gemfields business that's listed in South Africa on the JSE, but also what it means for Fabergé potentially. So we're going to take a look at that. Then we're also going to have a conversation around the South African PGM market. That is, of course, the platinum group's metals sector of our mining space. We're going to take a look at the calls that have come up recently around establishing a trade exchange in South Africa for the PGM space, because South Africa makes up probably the largest contributor towards the PGM space globally. And so there have been calls around whether or not it would be beneficial to set up a PGM trading exchange of sorts that is based right here. We're going to take a look at the merits of that and see if we can make sense of it. And then we've got a conversation with the Minister of Tourism, Minister Patricia de Lille, around strategic tourism that could potentially unlock the South African economy. This comes up in light of something we've taken a look at. We looked at the stages and meets visas that were introduced by Minister Leon Schreiber. We did that about 2 weeks ago. But alongside that, the conversations from the likes of Minister Gayton McKenzie around bringing Formula One to South Africa. These are all tourism-heavy contributions or catalysts that can really drive local tourism. And I thought it might be worthwhile to take a look at this with the Minister of Tourism and see what impact we can hope to achieve if we start to open up South Africa's borders for these sorts of global events and start to attract more global investment into the South African landscape. So we're going to speak to the Minister around that and see what her thoughts are around that. And then we're going to wrap up the show with a personal finance segment. We're going to take a look at the cost of dying without a will in place. It's important to have these sorts of documents and structures and procedures in place so that your loved ones are prepared in the event that they lose you unexpectedly or even expectedly. I think it's just important to have these things in place, and we're going to take a look at it from a personal finance perspective, trying to understand how to best prepare ourselves for that. But before we get to all of that, a quick sense of how the markets have moved throughout the day. It's been a red start to the week on the equity front, but for once I can say I'm not too concerned, just given where we stand at the moment contextually. Asian markets were all in the green. The Nikkei was the biggest gainer there, about 1.8% up there. European markets were bit of a mixed bag. The DAX and the CAC 40 were in the red, whereas the FTSE was in the green, about 0.33%. So the only European market that finished in the green of the three was the FTSE. Our own local markets were in the red. Resources down 1.5%, but financials were up 0.73%. As a result, the all share down only about 0.1%. Similar margins on the top 40 side of it, but the all share still above 100,000 points. And that's why I said I'm not too concerned about it. Sometimes we can kind of expect that markets will not run and have consecutive green days all the time. So I'm not worried just yet there, but we have quite a bit to dig into around what's been happening there. There have been a couple of company updates that we're going to dig into there with Makwe Masilela. He has been, of course, on your Show, Ashraf, throughout the day, but he'll be joining us tonight for a bit of a more detailed breakdown about what's been happening. Quick look at the price of Bitcoin, $120,000 of Bitcoin. We were at about 121 a little earlier on. In Rand terms, we are well above the 2 million Rand mark at this point, 2.134 million Rand there. So 135 odd thousand rands there, depending on what exchange you are looking at that price on. The rand still strong against the dollar, 17.73. 1 British pound, 23.79. 1 euro, 20 rand 57. 1 Australian dollar, 11 rand 54. Quick look at commodities. The Brent crude price still below $70 a barrel at $66.50. The gold price below $3,350 a fine ounce, around $3,348 at the moment. Platinum and palladium pretty much unchanged, $1,340 in the case of platinum, $1,160 in the case of palladium. We're going to look at these and other matters. As I mentioned, I've got Makwe Masilela of Makwe Fund Managers on markets with me tonight. I want to get a sense of a couple of the company updates that we got. We got SENS announcements from the likes of Rainbow Chicken, ArcelorMittal, even Glencore gave us an update on some of the transactions that have been taking place within their business. So we've got quite a bit to dig into, but of course, that comes up when we come back a little later on. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Right, perfect. Enjoy your show, 6 to 7, followed by an hour of sport from 7 to 8, and a whole lot more, of course, here on the National Pulse.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
The boardroom heat is on and the pressure is rising. The Insurance Apprentice, hosted by the one and only Babi Moloi, is delivering drama, tough decisions, and big personalities every week. Expect bold moves, emotional twists, and contestants you'll either root for or roast. And yes, you'll be surprised what you learn about insurance along the way. Open up to the Insurance Apprentice, Thursdays at 7 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
SAFM celebrates its 89th birthday this month by giving listeners an exclusive opportunity to attend the prestigious Joy of Jazz taking place at the Sandton Convention Centre from the 26th to the 28th of September 2025. To stand a chance to win these sought-after tickets, simply SMS SAFM 89 followed by your name to 41391 and stay tuned to SAFM as we could be calling you. SAFM is the official media partner for the Dipala stage at the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz. Entries open from the 7th of August and close on the 31st of August 2025. Winners will be randomly selected and called from the 1st of September 2025. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. T's and C's apply. You're listening to the National Pulse.
So Donald Trump has been, is delivering a media statement of sorts, saying, I will tell Putin to end the war, but it's not up to me to make a Ukraine deal. But he's essentially suggesting he's going to lean on him strongly to make a deal regarding Russia and Ukraine. The other one who's commented is the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie. Now, you know, he's been found out tweeting a whole lot of things going back decades, a while back, in fact, and using the K word extensively on at different levels, and all that is open to interpretation the way you want to see it. But he, in fact, has denied being racist And I mean, the key part, he's saying, how can I be racist against black people if I'm black? I'm the son of a black woman. I have children with a black woman. I fought my whole life for the same treatment between black and colored people because we fought the same struggle. In my entire life, I've never called anybody the K word. Never, he says. Where are the victims? This is a political campaign driven by the EFF, together with some, they call them influencers on Twitter. Right, let's get more comments from you. Here's one.
Hello, Asaf. Hope you're well, man. Listen to that lady's speech. We're a broken nation, Asaf. We're very broken in this, and broken people are very dangerous. I hope the president, I'm not sure where he is or what he's doing, except this dialogue thing. But I hope he listens to what people comment and says on radio. It's not a joke, Ashraf. People are fed up. Imagine you walking to a bank, they say, no, you can't be approved because your credit is low. Then you go to your nearest local municipality and you ask for a home. You're a South African citizen, and they tell you that your credit is low and you don't fall in a bracket of between 3.5 and 22K a month. So that means you are lost. You must give all your money to the landlords. Thanks, Ashraf, Peter George.
Well, thanks for that. I mean, from George, you're making the point that there's just so much wrong in our country, and I hear you, and therefore, that sort of hashtag broken country. I mean, here's one that's maybe more on the good news side. Let me just pick it up. Good day, Ashraf. The guys that are doing the economic forecast at the radio station, they are actually helping me a lot, especially us who are studying economics. They are very informative. Wow, that's a massive thumbs up to them. I'm glad that you've taken the time to tweet about it too. What's your thoughts on Operation Dudula?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Zandile is right, is correct 100%. We are very, very angry on the ground. But we don't want the situation to get out of hand. But our government, if they don't listen, they will see, because this is a ticking bomb. This is a warning. They must do their work. That's only that we ask for. This is Bongani from Chatsworth, Wellbedash East.
Well, Bongani, thanks. I mean, you can protest, but can you actually call to make a country ungovernable? What would the charge for that be? I mean, is that okay?
Hi, Ashraf. Hi, SFM listeners. I was just listening to the Operation Dudula, apparently spokesperson. I understand their grievance, but they are breaking the law. South Africa's constitution guarantees equal rights to everything for anyone that is within the borders of the country. So you preventing foreigners from accessing healthcare is breaking the law, and they should be arrested. It's that simple. Another question is, I wonder who is funding them and using language like the country will burn is inciting violence. We see what is happening with Zuma's daughter and the riots in June. So we need to be careful. Deji Cape Town, thank you.
Well, many may concur with you that they breaking the law. They are, yeah?
Oh, hi, Ashraf. This is Fergus. I just wanted to react to Jose Matunjwa's voice note. I think the problem is, if the mines are nationalized, how are the mines going to compete? If they can create work, that's great, but what product are they going to sell? Are they going to sell at a loss, or is there somehow going to be some magic wand that these guys can wave to make the product that they produce cheaper than anybody else? Just asking for a friend.
Just asking for a friend, and you could be your own friend in asking that question. By the way, here's another one. I'm looking at a tweet from Kennedy Wandera saying President Samia Hassan's Tanzanian government has now ordered the police to increase social media monitoring and quickly respond to online content that could incite violence or spread misinformation ahead of the October 29 election. Wow, there we are.
Ashraf, South Africa is not an island. So even if we can have a referendum where we say we do not support some parts of this constitution, in law, there is something called universal human rights that supersedes any country's rights, like the right to healthcare and the right to education. You cannot say, because my constitution says this, then I therefore cannot. There are universal human rights that supersedes other human rights. Thanks, Spongi here.
Well, there we are. Okay, I think you're right about the balancing act of one right superseding the other. So thanks for amplifying that, right? Well, that conversation about from John Steenhuisen, what do you make of it?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. What John Steenhuisen has said is absolutely true. Spot on, hit the nail right on the head. At the end of the day, the commissions are absolutely useless. They have been useless and they will be useless because the ANC will never want to censure their own party members. They might move them to other departments and so on, but we never see any action taken against them. And it's sad because it should be done. This is Mike from Hillcrest and KZN.
Okay, got that, Mike. Thank you for that, Mike, in support of Steenhuisen. Here's one about the IDT saga story. Yeah.
Hi, Ashraf. Ashraf, you know, it's amazing in what's happening in South Africa. And I was just saying to myself last time, with Mr. Mashawani's foundation, you know, it's a great initiative. And I was checking, but then something it's not adding up. You look at the conference, the event they host. Last time they hosted another one in Sandton in Mandela Square, just by Convention Center there. And when you check on the guest list, it's all celebrities. It's all people in high-profile places. And you check on the sort of project that they do. I'm not saying they are not good initiatives. You check the value of the properties they build and what they collect. It's alarming. Gwena.
Thanks for that, Gwen. I think you've made your point very clearly, and I expect others will respond to that, either on the radio or even when they have supper tonight.
Collins Mashawani Foundations, just like Malaka's foundation, they will come and say no. Nobody ever accepted. Brian Mulife was in the Sexin World Shebin. He didn't accept that he was in the Gupta's house. Aglioti, you remember the Jegisilebe? Aglioti is my friend, Finish and Clark. See, corruption is so endemic that people get surprised why you are not eating, because it's your turn or it's their turn to eat. And it's so endemic that they don't even hide. They just steal, siphon state coffers, just 99. And it's so embarrassing that corruption is so endemic that if you are not corrupt, they just surprise and look at you, you're leaving the money next to you. Well, our political system really disappointed us. The ANC let us down. Politicians, oh God.
Well, I hear you. Just to rephrase a well-worked phrase, I didn't join the struggle to struggle.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. John Steenhuisen is very vocal about his views about the BEN transformation. Though he will gaslight us into thinking that he is for it. Truth is, he will never, ever accept the transformation and restitution or equity. If he wanted that, he would have spoken about this monopoly in all business sectors and the setup in JSE. Thank you, Ashraf. It's VK from Devon.
Okay, got that. And here's another one from Nasima Mohammed saying, "Hi, Ashraf, I'm so fed up by these so-called convoluted laws that favor the crooks. We all saw the bribery take place. It wasn't even an attempt by the fraudster. The journalist refused to go along with the bribe. It's time the judiciary stop making idiots of us and convict these blatant thieves and fraudsters in the government, business and private sectors." And that from Nasima is probably similar to what so many others may say, right?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's Nasima Mohammed from Durban. Anas was killed because he was showing the truth, an uncomfortable truth that they didn't want to see, like they shut up all the other journalists. So this is what happened to Anas, because he was showing us the dire conditions, the way the Palestinians were being starved and being killed in the process. Israel is the biggest terrorist state, so is the USA and all their allies. So they just want to get rid of all the journalists. Anas was not a terrorist. Thank you.
The claim at this point in time is that he was effectively a Hamas operative of sorts. No confirmation of that, but do they have a point if that's what they say? By the way, journalists killed in that region, I think in excess of 200. And that's a crazy number no matter what, right? I'll tell you what, let's end the show with something we talk about so often.
Obviously, the point I'm trying to make is that role reversal, we're an angry, ungrateful, self-privileged society. We don't understand that people need refuge. Some falsely, others definitely not. The shoe's on the other foot now. And when you take the national pulse, it's got to be the carotid artery or the wrist, not the big toe, my brother. Johnny Mahala from Kabarga.
The wrist, not the big toe. Let me end with this. I'll tell you what, I picked up a tweet from MDN News, and goodness, it's humorous. It is frustration. It says a vehicle owner in Joburg, and they got a video. A vehicle owner in Joburg clashes with the mechanic after a tracker, listen to this one, a tracker reveals the car, which should be in the garage for repairs, was spotted cruising around the neighborhood. So clearly the owner went to the mechanic and they're having this big fight about why he's spinning around with his car in the streets of Joburg. Well, there you are. That's the National Pulse for you. We'll do it again tomorrow, right? Thank you for listening. Here's the news at 6.
Top stories this hour. The Gauteng Committee on Community Safety slams the killing of 2 police officers and manufacturing output